Episode 297, coming a little bit early. Don't worry, you'll have another one on the regularly scheduled time, but there's just been too much to cover in just one episode, and we've caught a little bit of reinforcements.
Emergency episode. Emergency.
Literally.
Bring
Quite
the alarm
literally.
bells. Emergency.
Are we ringing the alarm bells? I think that's kind of like the question of the hour. Is are the alarm bells actually ringing, or are we all just selling wolf tickets?
This is a real reason why I'm here.
Okay.
I just talked about this subject on Player Chat, and people said that I wasn't upset enough. So my strategy was, I'm going to find the only other person that's even less upset than me, which is Joe. That's why I'm here. So be angry at him. He's even less upset than me, guys. Come on. Don't. Oh, dude. I'm bringing the fake tears out this episode. I'm gonna get really upset this time around. I got the fake tears ready. I'm gonna rub my eyes, make them all red.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the angry face. If I still wore glasses, I'd rip them off my face like Samito did. I'm ready to get fucking fuming today.
The YouTuber apology angle is strong with this one. It's going crazy. Yiska, are we big mad, or are we? What's the vibe?
I mean, I'm disappointed. So personally, this kills, just like from me as a player,
this kills the PvE.
This kills all PvE. Unironically, like, my god is everything that has anything to do with PvE so far. Also, the Storm, I always want to say Stormlight Archives. Fuck, the archive events were boring as shit. And I will think less of you if you enjoyed these. And I will think even less of you.
They were fun the first time.
If
you
enjoy Blizzard storytelling, okay? Like, I send a Vice reporter to write this, okay? Like,
a Vice reporter? That company's dead, mate.
Yeah.
you know how they bullied recently Brandon Sanderson for being like a milquetoast motherfucker. Like, I don't know.
Vice?
Wasn't it? Maybe it wasn't.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know. No, but
I thought Vice went under. But regardless, I know what piece you're talking about.
I'm of course over exaggerating, but yeah, I feel like Blizzard storytelling has never done anything for me. It's a little bit too, I don't know.
In any Blizzard game.
Yeah. I think like the last time I enjoyed it was probably because I was still developing as a young boy and I liked Warcraft 2.
Okay.
Everything else.
That was the story that did it. Warcraft 2 was the one that did it for you.
Yeah, the orcs and the humans.
Really?
Yeah.
Not even Warcraft 3. Warcraft 2 was the one that did it for you.
Warcraft 3 was also okay-ish from a storytelling perspective, but there was more the PvP experience. Then again, like, I also, like, if it's a competitive game, I'd probably be fine if there was zero story and stick figures. And that would entertain me enough. And if there are progression systems, that's another thing. Like, the fact that they are all the progression is now gone from PvE makes it totally uninteresting to me.
Okay.
You like, I'm the simplest consumer, okay? I need carrots. I need min-max grind. Like, you might have just told me that Diablo doesn't have skill trees or itemization. Like, that's how I feel about this. There's nothing inherently interesting to me about what PvE will likely shape up to be.
Except Diablo doesn't have anything else except that it's an RPG. It'd be like, if Diablo also had its own 5v5 PvP on top of that, it'd be less of low, but I understand what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah. No, like the PvP, of course.
That's the kind of game he's looking for. He just wants to hit
numbers go
and
bigger.
make number go up.
Grind makes me go ahead, yeah. Like, if I spend my life in this game, I respect to make fathers cry while they have to take care of their children and I rate their bases. That's what I want.
Why don't you just play Rust? Yeah.
Well, because like that, I probably did that too much already. But yeah, no, like of course, once again exaggerating. But if there's no progression system other than the intrinsic one of getting better at the game, yeah, nobody cares. Nobody.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, it's definitely worse without the progression. I agree.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, and people accuse me of being a contrarian or he's obtuse. Is he willfully ignorant? Yeah, bring the comments on, motherfuckers. But just out of curiosity, because this is important, how do you feel about general, like, story-based games where, like, it's just story? Like, you play through, like, for example, Half-Life 2. You play through it once, clearly no progression. Okay, I use, like, the oldest example possible. Actually, I could have gone old. I could have said Half-Life 1, but we'll start from there because Half-Life 2 is considered one of the best, you know, do I even say narrative? Well, it's not even fair to say narrative, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's a story-driven first-person shooter game that it doesn't even have to be first person, but I went there because it's like one of the most highly critically acclaimed, you know, games that today, if it was released in 2023, people would probably say this game has no features, but historically it holds up. I mean, I could probably bring up other examples, but we'll just go there. Like, how do you feel about games like that where, yeah, you just play through the story, probably not playing it again? Like, imagine it like a Sekiro, for example. Okay, that's got a little bit of progression, but how many times are you really replaying that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean to,
Sure.
this isn't some weird devil's advocate perspective either. I feel like I'm like a talk in a Twitch chat right now. But I'm just curious because, like, I play those types of games. I even pay AAA prices for these games. I play through them. I enjoy it once, and then I uninstall and I don't bother go back. And I fully pay for that game.
That's
you know what I
fine.
mean? So,
But even those games have progression systems. You know, like, for instance, even
so
Half-Life has
what about
them.
Half-Life 2?
Yeah,
Half-Life 2
you
doesn't
get
have
new
progression.
weapons. You get new weapons. Like, sometimes, to be fair, I don't quite recall Half-Life 2 without the Black Mesa mod. And there, like, you unlock, you know, new abilities for the gravity gun and whatnot. That feels like you're unlocking new parts of capabilities, you know.
Sure.
The same, yeah.
How about because I actually went back and watched this recently. Because I was curious about what the actual demo at BlizzCon was. Obviously, I wasn't there in 2019. But there's some gameplay footage, and the first that popped up with it was XQC's, where it's a full run through of the Rio de Janeiro mission that they released. Not they didn't release, but they had as a demo in 2019 for BlizzCon. And I watched through that. And I was just like, okay, what is this? And I wanted to get an idea of, like, what these story missions could be. And even then, in that mission alone, there was a small version of talents involved. It wasn't the 3 massive skill trees. It was like the original version of the talents, where, like, it was you had 3 or 4 tiers. You had to pick one option each. That's like 8 total talents, for example, 6 or 8 total talents for a hero like Ryan. And during the level, you would get, like, item drops, and they could be like deployable items, something like that. And you could use them. For example, one of them was like a circular shield, so that your tank wasn't the only one dropping a shield, maybe, or something like that. And so we could argue that during a level of a story mission, assuming that is what we're going to get in the future for story missions, and that hasn't been changed. And I would say, why would it have been changed, given that that's what we've already had? Like, that's literally what they've already made as far as the demo goes, and we could assume that goes through. Is that acceptable progression for a story mode? It's not the same as hero missions, not as in depth as hero missions, but it's some progression. That's better than no progression? Does that change the needle for you?
Probably not too much. Even though it would be
I'm out
good.
of here.
Like, no, I think, like, but there has to be something that you grind out between sessions, so to speak. And I realize this is not necessarily true, for instance, for a lot of BR games. There, you have, like, the closest to that is probably the Battle Pass, and we have that anyway. But yeah, maybe if the items were varied a lot, and, like, you know, it's like a roguelite experience where you just have new combinations every once in a while, and that alters the experience and the replayability a little bit. Maybe I could get that. I also think there will be leaderboards in terms of timing. That's something that I'd like. That's a type of feature that I enjoy. But yeah, like, my thing is just, like, I guess Joe also knows this. Like, if I'm running one of those, like, it feels like a little bit like a mythic dungeon. I'd much rather get loot at the end of the dungeon and be rewarded for whatever I did, and everything stands in comparison to that. And whatever I saw of those, like, I never had those emotions that others felt when they saw these enemies and whatnot. Like all the Omnics just lack, or the Omnic opponents lack character to me. Like they feel really hollow, and I have a really hard time caring for them or their mechanics. And yeah, it never really like got me excited. But that's also not the necessary. Like this is my own personal taste. Is that's not like them missing that is not the thing that I'm really upset about, or why I think like the news was upsetting.
Yeah.
Like generally, like especially for my job, I have to extrapolate what I think will happen at scale for the largest player bases, and there are several network effects where I feel like not only is it kind of sad that this happened, or that this had to happen, but also the way it was communicated is once again, unfortunately. Like
before we get to that,
yeah,
that's a big topic I want to get into, because I think the main, not even possession, but it's like the main talking points I have for PvE is massively surrounding the overarching effects of what it has on the game, and also like how we got here as well. But I had one last question regarding to you, Yiska, about the PvE gameplay and all of that. And just as you were talking, I was thinking about like other examples. How do you feel about Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2? Because you could argue those games had very limited progression. You upgraded, you could get more guns, you could get some consumable items like grenades and stuff to throw. There's no progression between the different levels as well. You start fresh for every new run. I would also say there's not enough randomization and not enough things in the game in terms of depth for it to be a roguelike either, so it doesn't quite tick that niche. And the other thing is the Overwatch 2 PvE that we based on development that we're aware of, it fairly influenced by Left 4 Dead style gameplay. If you think about it, 4-player co-op horde shooter, get from A to B through a level. That's pretty not identical to Left 4 Dead, but like holy shit, that's mega inspired by Left 4 Dead, right? So how do you feel about Left 4 Dead as a game, Yiska?
So Left 4 Dead 1, I played the shit out of, but mostly for the PvP experience. Competed in leagues there and all that type of stuff. Left 4 Dead 2 became pretty old, and then like I don't know, like I think it's also then when progression systems became like a staple, where you know the last iteration of this is like the spiritual successor that actually didn't really work that well, but still had it, is Back 4 Blood, and that game had progression, a lot of that, right? Like there you had these abilities to unlock stuff and like look forward to something, because like for instance, I think a game like Tarkov I would enjoy a lot less if it was just the milsim experience, right? Or even if it was just like my inventory that I kept, even that would feel hollow. The fact that like you level up experience and therefore get to unlock new gear down the line that helps you perform your task better, that's the exciting part for me. Like I don't know, like I'm gaming for a long time has been about min-maxing for me. That's why I'm looking forward for,
you know what it is,
Diablo 4 and whatnot. Yeah,
I think the industry has shifted. That's part of the reason why. That's why games like Half-Life 2, that's why I said, like, if you release Half-Life 2 today, people would probably say it lacks features, because the industry has evolved so that most games now do actually have more progression, than they did before. And Left 4 Dead is like somewhat old now. The reason why I brought that into conversation is because I'm just curious about your stance on it, given the logic framework, and just seeing how it holds up in the logic framework. Because but just to clarify, like so Left 4 Dead 2, remove PvP from the conversation for now, which actually like scales the game way back. If you talk to the Left 4 Dead players, the main thing they go back for in terms of replayability is the PvP. You probably don't replay the PvE a lot if it was pure PvE. So how do you feel about if we just isolate the pure PvE part, because that's what we're talking about in terms of an apples to apples comparison between PvE and Overwatch and other games? How do you feel about Left 4 Dead PvE just in a vacuum?
That's unfortunately pretty boring to me, because of the predictability of like everything that's happening, even at as far as I remember, even at higher difficulties, there were always like ways to play around certain mechanics, and I don't know, it lost its sheen after the first playthrough, I think.
You know what's ironic about what you said in terms of the Back for Blood stuff, because that's a game I played extensively. And you know, the misinformation agents out there will tell you that for some reason I don't care about PvE when like I'm actually a huge PvE guy. I repeatedly say how I held the #1 spot on Retribution for like 12 to 24 hours before Space and his team took me down. That's a repeatedly good memory of mine. But I played the shit out of Back for Blood and other co-op PvE shooters. I'm all about them, actually. And the irony about Back 4 Blood is all the Left 4 Dead purists said that the progression system in Back 4 Blood was like, it was confusing, or was a gimmick, or like it was just dumb. I mean, some of them were like just pure hating because they just disliked that something came out that had a Back 4 Blood look about it, but was, sorry, a Left 4 Dead look about it, but wasn't Left 4 Dead 3. So they were just legitimately hating no matter what. But then, you know, maybe some of them were legit, and I don't know, like, I thought the progression, one of the main reason I like Back 4 Blood was because it had the thing that, for me, Left 4 Dead didn't, which was the progression. And I didn't care about the PvP in the game. Like, the PvP in Left 4 Dead, bro, that infuriated me. I could not stand the PvP. Not that it was a badly designed thing. It was just like, dude, if you want to talk about a PvP experience where, you know, the ability for your teammates to completely throw your game is like at the maximum level possible, that's Left 4 Dead. Like, people could throw your games unbelievably hard, so I just stayed the hell away from PvP. But yeah, like, the main draw for me for Back 4 Blood was that there was depth in the co-op, in the PvE. So, like, I'm all about it as well. I think, obviously, progression's better than no progression, but I still look back on some of those games and I feel like, you know, as I mentioned, I've paid full price for games that had very little to no progression, just story, and I played through them. I had my fun playing through them once, and I still pay my $60, and as far as I know, that's what everyone else did. Maybe that's just because it was a product of our time and that's all there was, but I don't know anyone complaining back then about it, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Like, in my mind, for instance, a game that really, like, could be S tier for me, but now I never play it and probably would never play it again, is Sea of Thieves. If Sea of Thieves had item progression and stealing something isn't just a reputational thing where you get like better cosmetics, that game would instantly be S tier for me. Because it isn't, I CBA, really. That's unfortunately the case.
I've never played Sea of Thieves. It's actually one of the ones I haven't played.
It's a very interesting experience when you're going through it the first time. There's a lot of like novel like things to kind of experience and have happen to you, and you know, to board an enemy ship and to steal their stuff and to fight some of these little bosses. It's fun for like a good couple days with some friends, but then the lack of progression makes it feel very shallow. It makes you really wonder why you're really doing it. You can grind out some cosmetics, which is cool, but you know, it's like a weekend game. It's very much like a weekend warrior. Like, oh yeah, like we're bored, we'd have nothing to do. You want to go like load up Sea of Thieves and hang out for a little bit and do some silly stuff?
Do you think what's remained of the PvE, what's left of it, do you think it's just going to be a fail? Do you think it's just going to be a flop, or what?
I don't think it'll be a fail. I think there's plenty of people that have this thirst for learning about these characters. Is it going to be at the degree that maybe they were expecting, that they were promised? Probably not, unfortunately. I still think there's room for them either immediately or to, I think, pretty feasibly in the near and immediate future, create some kind of tie-in progression system with the remaining PvE elements that they are introducing to kind of help you along your battle pass. I think that would probably be who of them as well. And I think there is still a way to kind of piece it together. Is it disappointing? Yes. Are people going to be completely let down by it? I think not. I think everybody's right to feel disappointed and feel however, you know, they want to feel. I think it's a little wild to just say that PvE is dead, because that's just patently not true.
That's not true,
yeah. it's just a little less. Let's not mince our words here. It's a lot less than we expected, but it doesn't mean it's dead. And that it's gone. I think the people who are interested in the lore, in the stories of this universe, will have that itch scratched and probably will, get their nut.
But it's free, right? As far as we know, it's free because I'm pretty sure this isn't. It's been added to the seasonal model.
Yeah,
which means it's like any other event that you just get for free now. So it's not like anyone's paying for this anymore, which I know is like that isn't a justification for what it's worth, and I have to defend myself on that statement because I know that's a statement people are gonna get upset about. But I'm not saying that makes it justified. I'm just saying there are certain people out there that are like, oh, they want us to pay for the PvE. Was like, I guess not anymore. Like it's scaled back enough that it's just seasonal content now.
That's ultimately what I was afraid of when it came to PvE, that these were going to be like chapter models where you get like a big sizable chunk of content, but you're going to be paying for it. And that was like my ultimate fear, was that like the community was going to see this hyper monetized in their mind product with a battle pass, with it, whatever.
Yeah.
And Blizzard was going to try to sell that to them. And
if we're still paying for this, it'd be a shambles. If we are still having to pay for this, then it would be a shambles, 100%. At that point, I actually probably wouldn't buy it personally. As much as I normally play PvE stuff, and I would have 100% bought the PvE in its original form that they were planning on selling. But if they were to sell the hero missions to me now, I wouldn't buy it. But I don't think that's what they're doing, because
it doesn't seem like it.
Based on the language of them adding it to the seasonal model, that's not how that works. So, they've shifted away from it being what is essentially set as a full separate game that they would have sold. So,
no. Not to get completely too in the weeds before we forget, I do need to shout out quickly the patron producers and the people who make the show possible.
That was a long intro.
22 minutes.
We went for
22 minutes.
It was very long. I tried to bide my time. I didn't want to completely ruin the flow. So forgive me. But this episode is brought to you by Battlecrab, Refund Bean, Bronzebud, Buhau, Picasso, Chris R3444, Koch67, Lolshin, Porkchop, Sammy, Rexane, Volamel, and Sugar High, and our YouTube members: I am DRW, Brother, Adam L, Sagi Fumi, Ice M Gel, Fire Element 6, AK, and Chris R. PvE isn't dead, guys. That's crazy.
Yeah. Now I will say, okay, here's something that I feel is true. I feel like the messaging of saying PvE is dead is wrong. But the practical impact on how people will interact with PvE, like that has killed a sizable chunk or has killed a community altogether, right? Like if you had say you have this game and it's a replayability thing, and people like the universe and they just get together with their friends. Maybe it's part of the quick play crowd that already doesn't want the pressure of having to play to win, or like that it's even people that are even more repelled by competitive experiences, that they don't even like quick play. You would get these, and it would create a community around that with replay value. And also, honestly, this is also part of the consideration for editorial. This would have been a huge traffic driver, right? Like discussing the skill trees, and you would have communities and apps and whatnot all organized around skill trees, the discussion, the best players, like the what would it be in other games, like I don't know, like OPGG, for League or something like this, where like skill trees are really important towards how you play the game, and you have to get the knowledge from somewhere. So this would create community hubs around that. I feel like that is probably dead. I also have questions around if they will make it seasonal. I think that would be a huge mistake, by the way, to come out with like.
What do you mean?
So a new mission launches, it runs for the season, and then it's gone.
Oh yeah, that would be that. No, they shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
It should be something that stays right in the game. You just replay it whenever you want, right?
Yeah. I think that's, and then eventually maybe down the line, several seasons down the line, because as it looks like, I'm not sure how at what frequency they are looking to do these story modes, but let's say in 2-3 years, you then have enough volume where someone could feasibly download Overwatch just for the PvE experience, spend like 20 hours in it, and be fine with it. I feel like it's going to be a hard sell. Like, maybe this is me underestimating how much volume these missions will have in terms of sheer hours, but I'm not downloading 40 gigabytes to play 2 hours of PvE. That's probably not something that I can see a lot of people doing. If I already like the PvP, I think those guys will pick it up, and it's more like an additional thing that players that are already like sort of in the Overwatch space will therefore consume, and it will make that experience more sticky. The attraction point of PvE, I think, if it ever comes in meaningful volume, it's probably years down the line when we have more volume for the PvE experience itself.
Yep. And I think that will form. You want to talk about forming communities as birds make sweet love out my window. I think that in and of itself, like given enough time, that will create new communities, right? That will create its own player base. Given,
dude, bro, they would have to be a lot. There would have to be a lot of missions. It's like so many missions that, like Yiska said, it could basically be its own game almost. But because they're not going to do that in one go, it would take so long to get there.
Yeah. Again, like that's the caveat, right? You would need enough time at scale with, even kind of recalling like XQCs, like, because I vaguely remember watching something similar and having some friends kind of play through the demo. They were like 45 minutes, maybe, I think. Which isn't a ton. So maybe these are different. Maybe they're a little bit longer. Maybe there's like their own in-game cutscenes that would be cool. I think like that's where Blizzard really never has lost any kind of polish in my perspective, is the direction of the cinematic team. Not at the scale of like the Hanzo and the Genji cinematics and the Mei and not that stuff, but just the like in-engine cutscenes to kind of help influence the storytelling. I think that might help buffer it out to maybe an hour in terms of like playability. And maybe if they are, if there is multiple a season, or maybe not multiple a season, but like multiple a year, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, like this, we have a couple seasons a year, like a few years down the road, you might have like a good, AA game to play, just strictly PvE, right? Maybe its own client, given 2-3 years. I don't know. Like I see the seeds of this PvE community still intact, but again, not at the scale. Disappointedly so.
It'll definitely be like a tack on to the, because we've gone from it being like its own game, like quite literally its own game, to it being part of the base game itself.
Yeah,
which in a vacuum is, I was going to say sounds like it actually just is a massive downgrade. But in the overarching, if you compare it to every other game, and people hate it when I compare to other games, let me tell you, bro, no other AAA, especially shooter game, has a PvE of any kind.
No.
I think Apex had like some weird story PvE thing. I didn't play enough Apex. I might just be talking about it my ass, but I've seen some like tiny PvE stuff from Apex. Valorant obviously has none of that. Warzone, no. Call of Duty, they have a they usually bring out a campaign.
It's true.
That's not like some, that's a one and done. Right. That's what I'm talking about. In terms of like a pure, and dude, you people are gonna call me fucking crazy, but I actually shell out mega bucks because Call of Duty games are expensive. I'm the dumb motherfucker who pays full price for Call of Duty games. Not every single one of them. I skip some of them just to play the single player because I don't really care for Call of Duty multiplayer. But I will shell out mega bucks just to play the single player, because sometimes the single player is like really legit. Like I really enjoyed.
It's actually not bad.
Warfare. Like it was. I'm I like that kind of military simulator. I want to be part of that's sort of like a mil sim movie. I want to be like, dude, if I was in a Michael Bay military sim movie, what would that be like? And I'm like, I'm happy to pay $100, whatever it is for that. So yeah, but what I'm trying to say is like, and again, I'm going to start comparing to other games. These other AAA live service games don't have PvEs, which if Overwatch had that, it would have been a huge blessing. This is the part where I think people don't understand my position. My position is that it is bad that we are not getting what we were promised. That's obviously a bad thing.
Yep.
But my position is also that I think what we were promised, it was like kind of impossible to get. Like it was too good to be true. Do you know what I mean? Like, and this is like some hindsight 2020 stuff as well.
Yeah.
Part of me always, maybe I shouldn't say this because now it sounds like I'm being revisionist a little bit, but part of me always felt like it was too good to be true. But I just trusted Blizzard. I was like, well, I just trust them, you know. Like I was like, I remember seeing the announcements and like seeing the scales. Like this sounds pretty big. I was like, this is pretty insane. Yeah. I don't know if they got to pull this off, but I just trust. Maybe I naively just trusted them. I was like, I'll just trust it. Why not? And now obviously it's come to pass that it's not true. And that the part of the reason why I'm not as upset as everybody else, because I'm like, bro, I was surprised this was a thing in the first place. Like it would have been cool if it was. But you look around the fucking rooms, like what live service AAA game even has anything close to this? It's like they don't. They just don't. Like so, if we did, it would have been great. But clearly, it's just too much to ask for. Like, is it too much to ask for? Yeah, it is. It actually is too much to ask for because it's way too big of a scale.
At the scale that they wanted to do, it is bonkers big for every hero to have their own dedicated story missions and this hyper replayability, and just it was huge. That like the prospect of it was shooting for the stars. And I think you touch on something that I think AVRL, you've always harped on about, that I've always been a big supporter of, is that like when we look at this game, I think we're very myopic. We're very like just tighted. We're sighted in on this game in particular, and we can't see the forest for the trees.
Yes.
But if we zoom out just a little bit,
I wasn't sure what you meant, but I had to look up the word, and I agree. Now I agree.
When we zoom out and we look at like the field of like what you're saying, when we look at like some of these other live service games, like even having a shell of what PvE was promised makes the live service model of this game way more appealing compared to like its contemporaries, like its peers, right? Like I'm sure Valorant will get some kind of story mode sometime.
No, they won't. They won't, because they're going to do they're going to do the reasonable thing that I suggested that Blizzard should do, which is invest their time and money into another anime instead of doing something.
You're not wrong there.
And why? Because you can offload that shit to a third party. You tick the lore box for all the fucking lore nerds out there. You can tick the lore box. And I'm not gonna lie, but if you just want a story, maybe it being presented in an anime/movie form might be better than playing through it. That's maybe a heavy debatable thing that I just said.
I don't think it's debatable.
Some people would actually like to play through it, but
like Riot
did pretty fucking well.
Yeah, Riot does a shitload of other stuff as well, right? Like even though these are not talk of the town, but there are a couple of like offshoot games, right? Like where
Riot Forge, they're publishing out, they're licensing out to publishers to create games for their universe. I think Convergence is coming out, this like Echo game where it's I think it's on PlayStation as well. Yeah,
just released one.
Yeah, and they're cool little titles.
That's what we could have been doing.
Yes, it should have been this, right? Like, just like you struck gold once again. Like you did the drunkard's walk. Like you found an IP that resonates, and then like you try to all do it in house instead of just growing the pie and having the big piece that you get be bigger than the pie that you currently have.
Can I leak something?
Okay.
There you go. This is a TCP exclusive. I want to preface this by saying sources, I made it the fuck up, meaning I don't have a source to share with you, because why would anyone share sources? So you don't, I'm just gonna, it sounds outlandish and you don't have to believe me, but I'm just gonna tell people what I've heard. Yiska, you might have also heard this. One of the cancelled, I don't know if Team 4 were working on this, could be another team, could have been working on this, could have been Team 4, I don't know. But one of like the game ideas for like an Overwatch IP game that wasn't Overwatch was like a tactical top-down XCOM style game that got cancelled. Now, I don't know if Team 4
Interesting.
were working on this or another team were working on this, or who
Huh.
could have been a third party. But I heard that was one of the like an Overwatch side project that could have been pretty cool. That
Yeah, that could have been cool.
is no longer a thing. So in terms, I only bring that up because we're talking about Riot Forge in terms of like the
Yeah.
small little games that got brought out, which expand the universe. You want to talk about like different
Yes.
experiences, whether it's PvE or an RPG or like a, I don't know, like a top-down game or this or that. Like, bro, we should be doing Riot Forge where like little tiny projects of different things in the Overwatch IP universe could have been done. That would have also ticked the lore boxes.
Yes.
And it's so insane to me that this developer hasn't realized that this is the best way to go about it after doing Hearthstone. You know, it's just like a dude that goes like, I kind of like vibe with Warcraft.
Yeah,
what about
yeah.
TCGs? And it's like, I guess here have some resources, and then boom, like just do that a bunch. Like, yes, you will like act as your personal VC, okay? Just like have these all little offshoot projects, and then
I
you can
think
just kill them.
they're trying to.
Like an Overwatch
It sounds like that's what. The
volume
okay.
of it is just not high enough.
Agreed. You're preaching to the choir. Blizzard's speed is piss slow. We know
It's not even
this.
the speed. It's the iron grip IP control. It's
Yes,
like
yes, that's exactly where I was
11
going.
out of 10 blockbuster,
Yep.
we ain't gonna ship it.
Dude,
Which works in some cases if you want to release a good game.
Yep.
But on the other hand, it's like, bro, you are shooting yourself in the foot for a lot of opportunities.
you know what the sad shit is? Like, we can, like, this all makes perfect sense to me, right? Like what we're saying. Like, it could be so much more value creating. Like, even if 90% of your shit fails, you got the big ones for, that do succeed, and that brings. The problem is, bottom line is, they are not getting punished whatsoever at the stock market for this, right? Like, their strategy just works. The empirical argument is on their side. If it wasn't, then there would be motivation
And
for
it would
them
have
to
change.
But like, for me to claim that this would clearly be better, I mean, it's still running and it's still improving, and they still sold at a ridiculous stock price, right? And now, of course, with the Microsoft merger likely happening, it changes the equation altogether. But like, I'm just like piss mad thinking like inductively what could have been, while empirically it just works financially.
I don't think you're too far off when it comes to empiricism, but when we're looking in the future of what game development probably will be, when we have these IPs that are so global, right? The League of Legends universe is a very big IP. The Overwatch universe, big IP, right? It is too difficult for you as a single entity developer to both develop other games for your game studio and also build out this own, again, universe full of their own kind of games and card games and top-down tactical, real-time strategy, this, that, the other thing. It's impossible for you to do that alone. So you need to license it out. And forgive me, any game devs out there that I'm maybe using the wrong terminology. It has to be, you have to give clearance to smaller studios and maybe create a collaborative effort with these studios to help, create this IP and strike at the potential that you have. And I think that's the beauty of Riot Forge, and that's something that I think it makes Blizzard executives' stomach turn, right? Like, to imagine giving up control is a sin for them.
You know what Blizzard come off like to me? They come off like the overly
helicopter parent.
Bro, you nailed it. Like the devouring mother, the fucking over controlling parent. No, my child, you cannot play with my child. My child.
Oh, is that corner? Is that baby proof? No. You can't be there. No, get him off the stage.
Can't leave the house without a fucking bicycle helmet and a fucking.
It has been always like this.
Suit on. No. No one can touch that. No one can do this. No one else is allowed to run esports. Only we can do it. No,
it's crazy. Like,
it's always been like this.
The interference this company ran. Like, I remember sitting at Atlantic Showdown and like observers getting like the call, wait, you cannot switch between Genjis. Like, if you go on Genji, then you need 5 seconds on another character and then switch to Genji. Otherwise, it's too confusing. Well, he just bladed. Whatever. And then I'm sitting there with my beer in a fucking gaming bar, and it's like, it's on broadcast, we're trying to... The subtext, of course, in hindsight now, they were trying to pitch a product eventually, or have sample footage of, pitching that product. I'm sitting there with my beer. Could you get out of the shot? This is blah, 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 no alcohol in broadcast. I'm in a bar, bro! This is crazy. Dude, whenever,
you actually got told off.
I was asked to move, yeah.
Yeah. I think, and Yiska, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember hearing this on a couple occasions for Takeover 2, the alcohol in the bar, because the event was in a bar, at a gaming bar, the alcohol was all turned around, so the labels wouldn't show. So it was it raised enough speculative doubt.
I'm not sure.
Is it really alcohol? We don't know.
I'm not sure if it was about the labels being turned or whatever. I'm not sure. They did a lot of white label production later on, right? Take TV, because they also did the Atlantic Showdown. But I remember it might have even been Takeover 1. I'm not sure if it was Takeover 1 or Takeover 2. But I remember that they were trying to figure out how to broadcast this as an esport, right? And they were imposing these rules, and it makes some sense. But they had some solid observers. I remember Alchemist just fucking popping a lid on all the rules being imposed, and I'm sure his fucking telephone
imposing rules.
Yeah, direct guidance is top down from Team 4. It was ridiculous for a while.
At a developer level, and that's public. That's not any kind of leaks here. I think he's spoken about this publicly, that Team 4 themselves were in the room sending texts hey, don't do that. We don't like XYZ. No, let them do their job. You are a developer. Nobody comes in and tells you how to balance Genji. Okay.
I mean, I might. No, but
okay, yeah, you might, but they aren't, right? I think there's a professionalism there,
and it's fine to give some guidance there, but very often it felt very helicopter parenty.
Yes,
and it's also that there is something traumatic in the DNA of Blizzard for having created so many of the most important, or facilitated so many of the most important genres that we're playing, right? Warcraft 3 created MOBAs that then created auto battlers and blah 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 down the line, right? All of this is, and they never got this big piece of the pie. So they're now, we are capable of creating this. Meanwhile, the Dota actually didn't come out of your game, right? Or your minds, right? You offered people,
you created the tools,
you gave the tools,
and then and that's why, I thought the workshop was smart. I think it's just underpowered in the way it works. But
yes,
I also think we're just unlucky with the type of game modes that we're currently looking into, that we haven't had one pop off and become the thing that everyone plays. I think it's only probably a matter of time until something really hits hard. It won't be auto chess or anything like this, but at least within Overwatch, everyone has a certain draw. I thought it was going to create a much more casual experience, where I feel at some point, most people in Warcraft 3 were actually more playing the custom games than the ranked modes.
Yeah. Everybody remembers Footman Wars and these there were some enigmatic custom games that okay, not everybody's going to know, but they were popular enough that it kind of grew a little limb out of the game. Hey, there's this little community that plays this weird game, and I think there's still possibilities for that. And I think in a very neighboring way, I think PvE will have that. My stance is it just needs a little bit of time.
And it's also just as a general strategy, right? This protectionism doesn't work, especially because you're not paying top dollar for top mines. You are
True.
Not competitive in terms of salaries, especially in the context of purchasing power and where you have your offices and what kind of policies you're enacting in terms of people now having to live in very expensive areas, where you have brain drain. So to be protectionist about who is able to inject novelty and cool ideas into your IPs is crazy. It's counteractive. If you had the best developers in the industry and you didn't want anyone to take anything away from you paying top dollar, fair enough. But that's no longer the case, right? Like, I'm not saying like the developers that Blizzard is left with are terrible or whatever, but it's very clearly the case that a lot of quality talent just left to other game studios, and these other game studios are still more open than you are, right? Like towards like outside ideas and like co-creation of environments, right? And this type of protectionism always hurt a little bit. Honestly, like part of me thinks like maybe there's some salvageable, like I don't know what kind of systems you have, but maybe I'd throw just like the capacity to do talent trees into the workshop. You don't have to design the talents. Just make it possible to do that in the workshop. And let's just people figure that out for themselves. Maybe there's something there.
I think, there's definitely a way to do it. I think you just need some driven people.
And this is actually I'll speak on the talent tree stuff a little bit here as well before I say my other point. But like when I don't remember if it was Jared or Aaron said this, but when they mentioned like how difficult talent trees were to make, and if you multiply like 50 by 35 heroes is like 1,800, however many. I'm not gonna do maths live on stream. It's over 1,000, it's like nearly 2,000 talents.
That's great.
And some people might be thinking like, well, is that hard? Some of the talents, to be fair, some of the talents aren't insane. It's like plus 5% damage. Okay, that's not a really ridiculous talent, but some of the talents are ridiculous. Like, oh, now this thing, now the healing pad follows you, or now it boops people away. It does that, which I'm not a developer, I'm not a coder, and I don't know what kind of effort goes into that. Maybe you got to change a line of code to make the thing follow you, but you do that at scale for 35 heroes across a lot of talents. And some talents where like now it has different function, because we know one of the talents was like a fire strike that now does ice and freezes.
Right.
Now you have a 360 shatter. Now you can do this or that or, and the functionality of some of the abilities like rapidly changes. That's a shitload of work. It's not just UI anymore. It's not just like, hey, let's just like write some stuff on the UI. It's like in the game, you now have to look at animation. You have to look at the coding. And sadly, this is the case as well, where like balancing does matter in PvE. I know some people think just because it's PvE, balancing doesn't matter. Trust me, people will complain. The Mercy mains will complain if Mercy isn't playable in the PvE compared to the other heroes. Trust me, that's going to happen. So the heroes, even in PvE, would have to be balanced. You can tell why it's just a massive undertaking. Yeah. But on the other hand, it's when we talk about the general persona of Blizzard in terms of how they treat their IP in games.
Yeah,
it's like when you know somebody that's you guys probably know people that are like this, and you meet a perfectionist and they're so stun locked by being a perfectionist that nothing gets done.
Nothing ever gets done.
Like they just like projects don't get finished because they'll be 90% of the way through. It's like but it's not an 11 out of 10 for me. You know, I'm just gonna scrap it.
Or they're such a perfectionist. Partially, I include myself in this category. They're such a perfectionist that they don't even start because they won't be able to do it perfectly.
Yeah, unless you can do it 11 out of 10, you don't even begin.
Exactly.
Dude, I get stunned like by that sometimes. Or like, there's plenty of ideas I wish I would just start on. Sometimes the biggest step is the first one.
Yeah, it really is.
But then it's like, it's not just about, in this case, you or like a single entity being a perfectionist in terms of Blizzard. It's also, and they don't want anyone else to touch it. Like, like I will not start this unless it's perfect, and also you will not do it either because I don't trust you because I'm a perfectionist. And this is where that old adage of like the Blizzard polish, quote unquote, Blizzard polish, which, you know, in years past was a respected thing. Now you look back and like, bro, that shit is that holds you back. The Blizzard polish, unfortunately, holds you the fuck back because it prevents you from doing things. It prevents you from just like being like, you know what, this is a 9 out of 10, but fuck it, this is okay. Like that's fine. Like don't worry about it. And this is not about like just reducing the quality of work to something stupid, but you would prevent situations like what we got in this PvE debacle if they weren't such perfectionists about it. And being a perfectionist, by the way, is also you want it to be so good that you're also like massively creep scoping, which is exactly what happened to PvE. And this is where I think we can maybe start talking. Not that I'm trying to shift topics here or anything, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the development phase of how we got here, because I think that's an important story to tell, and something that hasn't been talked about at much length by anyone else. I certainly didn't talk about this on Plat Chat, at least not to any sort of scale, where you know you want to design. You know, you can tell how it starts. Your what is it? I said on Plat Chat in 2017 was the first time I heard about Overwatch 2. That was the first. I don't know when for you guys, but the first time I had heard the words Overwatch 2 mentioned in a single sentence, which I considered bullshit at the time, because I was like, there's just simply no way they would create a sequel for this game, which is live service, especially a year after it was released. Like, we're only a year deep, guys. This can't be true. 2 years later, at BlizzCon, it was announced. So I know as far as back as 2017, they already either thought about it or began working on it. Probably began working on it already.
Yeah.
Because if the rumor mill spun up enough that it fucking got to me, then clearly they started working on it. I'm not the first person anyone tells anything to. I was several people down the line, I can tell you that much. So they'd already been fucking working on it for God knows how long by 2017 by the time I found out about it.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know if it was Jeff Kaplan, but somebody there was like, bro, this PvE thing, we just did when did Retribution come out? I don't even know. Overwatch Retribution, when was that? That
was season 1 of Overwatch League. Because I remember Jeff Kaplan coming out on stage, they did like the whole promotional thing. Early 2018.
What was the first one called again? Oh, okay, yeah, April 30, 2018. So this was even before Retribution. The first, the one on King's Road, Uprising, Overwatch Uprising, that came out in May 2nd, 2017. So the timelines make sense here. So my timelines are still accurate. Clearly after that, as they're working on Retribution and Storm, whatever it's called, Blizzard decided whether that's from Jeff or somebody else. Hey, this PvE thing, it's not too bad. We could probably do this. You know, we're PvE guys. We came out of Project Titan, which was going to be a PvE thing. We can sort of revive Titan in like a weird roundabout way through this. Jeff also came from the WoW team, where they did all the World of Warcraft stuff. He's a PvE guy. Of course they are. There's a bunch of PvE developers.
Oh, is he a PvE guy?
On Overwatch. It makes sense. But you also, by the way, and I don't have a link for this because I couldn't be bothered looking this up, but I'm pretty sure I'd find it if I did. Old interviews, could be old developer blogs, but old interviews that Jeff did, where he talks about PvE, like Uprising, Retribution stuff, and he expands on it and saying, like, bro, if we were going to make more of this and make this bigger, it would have to be its own game. He said these things back in like 2018, back in 2018, when at the height of archives, when they were pumping out these archive stuff, even though there's only 3 of them. He even said, he just blatantly said, like, yeah, we'd have to, wink, wink, make a whole new game if we want to expand on this. And back then it was like, oh yeah, he's just telling us why he can't make them better. But now you look at it, it's like, right, that guy was actually like soft leaking Overwatch 2 well before the actual Overwatch 2 announced. The guy was actually soft leaking. So they were clearly really wanting to do some PvE stuff, and they were willing to shelve Overwatch 1 to do PvE, and that's part of the grievance. That, I think, is something that people should be perfectly upset about. It's something that still upsets me to this day. So people say I'm not upset about this. I'm extremely upset about the fact that we shelved development of Overwatch 1 for 3 years for something that we're not really going to get in full anymore. We're going to get like a tiny version of that. So yes, I am upset. But yeah, I don't know. They decided to go all in on this PvE. They decided to go so all in on this that they were willing to shelve development of Overwatch 1 for that. That's how much they believed in PvE. And this is where I get back to the statement of like the perfectionism model again, where they want it to be so good that they're willing to like scope creep on it. Because how do you make this thing good? Well, you keep adding features. If we're going to make this a whole new separate game, you better keep adding enough new features that it is actually a separate game. And at some point, you add enough features that it's so huge now that if I describe to you, and I'm talking to the audience here mostly, but if I were to describe to you the feature list of Overwatch 2's PvE, it literally is a whole. It'd be like if you started to make another Left 4 Dead. It would sound like I'm describing make Left 4 Dead 3 is what I'm basically saying. Right, we're talking a full hero campaign, a full campaign, 4-player co-op campaign, on top of full replayable hero missions with 50 talents per hero, 3 talent trees, 50 fucking talents, 35 fucking heroes. And by the way, every new hero that comes out, 3 new talent trees, 50 talents. Full games of service, live service thing, because they would have to keep updating this, so they would have to keep adding new missions. this was not going to be a one and done where they just make a bunch of missions, release it, call it a night, and that's it. No, they would have to keep live servicing this thing and keep adding missions. And every single new hero, as I said, that comes out would have to have its own talents and all that kind of stuff. So they were literally going to end up developing 2 side-by-side huge games in Overwatch PvP and PvE, and they were both going to be live service. Hello? Does that not sound fucking crazy to anyone else? Like, what studio is capable of doing that? Fucking no studio. None of them. And people underestimate how hard it is to make PvE content. This is why GTA 6 has taken 10 years to make. This is why GTA 5 is still being pushed, because GTA 6 is so long. We saw the leaks for GTA 6. The thing is still pretty bare bones. Not that there's a problem with that. It's just how long it fucking takes to make. I played the shit out of Destiny 2. I know how long it takes to make PvE content, and even the PvE content that gets released, people blow through that in 1 week.
Yeah.
Because people are crazy, and I blew through that in 1 week as well, dude. PvE content takes fucking forever to make. Like, WoW has a huge development team, and WoW expansions, but people still blow through that. That's why they got to like lock off content and like make sure you feed it out, because otherwise people finish the top raid in 1 week and it's just all done.
I was just about to say that.
Do not underestimate how hard it is to make. I strongly argue it is more difficult, more time intensive, more resource intensive to create PvE content than PvP content.
Yes.
I know that to be true because I followed the Destiny 2 development for a long time as I played it, and every single dev blog was telling people like, bro, this shit is hard. This shit be fucking hard. It was every dev blog.
Yeah. Because it's creating something that, and you kind of talked about this when you're talking about talents. It's like, you're looking at it even through, I think correctly, through a logical and very like tangible lens, where it's just like, this is very resource intensive to do. It is very difficult to create 3 unique, separate talent trees, all with like core functional skills being tweaked in meaningful ways. I would even heighten that. I would underline that and add on. How do you even define what is fun to that? Finding something that is fulfilling in PvE, that's the secret sauce. That's what takes for fucking ever, right? You can sit there and kill grunts in Halo for hours on end. But what about killing him on the Halo itself? What about killing him in a Warthog? Why is that any different? How do we make that more interesting? How do we enhance this? How do we make it better? How do we make it more enjoyable? That's in my opinion, it makes it so entirely difficult, because it's not something that you can kind of just assume the player is going to do for themselves, because every match in multiplayer is always usually different, right? You have different teammates, they have different playstyles, it's a different game mode. There are so many moving variables that are automated for you. Every new experience, every time you click the play now button, it's something new. It's novel, right? PvE, it's not. It's a straight line track most of the time. And if it's not, it's usually you're not deviating too far away from the track. Let's be honest, guys. So it's creating every stop along that track, making it feel super interesting, making it feel like you just got into another matchmaking game, making it feel novel. That's impossible. That's magic.
I also think like, okay, this is actually part, every decision comes with some benefits. I think the huge benefits is there's no shot this wouldn't have pissed us the fuck off as a PvP crowd. Like eventually we would have just like, I'm not sure if it would impact the cadence of new heroes coming out, or the quality of those heroes that come out, or the attention given to PvP. I have WoW PTSD from WoW Arena, okay? We were absolute like stepchildren to the PvE crowd, and we should have been probably at the time. But at the same time, I still remember like during IEM 2010, Azael won that event, by the way. WoW had more viewers than CS and Quake combined at that event, okay? WoW Arena was bigger than CS at the time. And it was still a complete afterthought for development teams, right? I remember, like, Errol, we had a discussion around this. I was, like, so scared of becoming second fiddle in terms of, like, if this really pops off and, like...
PvP becoming second fiddle?
Yeah. PvP becomes this second fiddle because, like, maybe you even sell, like, $40, $60 games every second year. That's
Sure.
way more. Maybe the to be fair, maybe it's not. Maybe the battle pass is more cost efficient. But yeah, I was scared of the incentive models that we were creating there, and that could lead to an untimely demise of the PvP experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think what
You're right.
one thing
Go
I'm
on.
just taking on, I think like it must have felt amazing to them to be able to say, oh, we did a ton of work, we have a ton of assets. If we kill this, we have so much more assets available to us in order to put into the battle pass, and it really like takes pressure off us and makes it possible to release cool shit. And honestly, I will also say I really enjoy. Okay, I don't enjoy necessarily the output; it's not my cup of tea. But I enjoy the type of creativity and the paths they go to currently each season, in terms of like what is introduced, even like the little dating sim or whatever stuff. Like that stuff is not my cup of tea, but the idea of doing something out of the box is super nice to me.
I need to fight you on something. I don't agree with the battle pass comment at all. You can't, in my opinion, you can't really repurpose this PvE stuff into battle pass in terms of what you currently get in the battle pass, because what are the assets in the PvE? Talent based stuff, UI stuff, the redone abilities. That's not going to make it to the battle pass. Skins, okay, skins, sure. But like, how many were there PvE specific skins? Possibly, I'm not going to doubt that, but that would be it. It's not like you're not adding the robot AI stuff into pick. Like, that doesn't carry over to the battle pass. The PvE levels, all the assets for the levels they did, the giant spaceship on Rio de Janeiro, none of that's going to make it to the battle pass. So literally only skins would make it to the battle pass. I'm going to fight you on that a little bit, because I just don't think that really carries across the battle pass at all, personally. But this entire discussion, sorry.
Would it be fair to say that at least some of the assets could be repurposed into kind of bite-sized? Because I know, obviously, we know that there is like smaller, archive style PvE content coming.
That's what I expect.
Yeah,
I expect that whatever people think that 3 years worth of work is just going to get deleted. Some of it probably will be, but like I would like to see. This is my hope now.
Yeah,
OPM on. I would like to see some of the cancelled work be reallocated into the hero missions. So whatever work they did do on talents, you can still keep that. You can still have some version of that in the hero missions itself. Whatever, all the AI work they did on the PvE enemies that we got shown, all this other stuff, all the like mission objectives and all that kind of stuff. A lot of that can get repurposed into the hero missions. So that's why I think the hero missions we're going to get is going to be hopefully higher quality than the archives, because they spent damn near 3+ years working on this kind of stuff. And to me, it's not like move all to recycle bin, delete forever. As a business, that is not a smart thing to do. As a business, the correct thing to do is to repurpose things you've done into other things that you can make with it, right? Because that's exactly how Titan worked. For people that are like, yeah, but Blizzard are done, but brother, Overwatch was created from repurposed work. That's literally Overwatch's origin story. If they repurposed Titan, so here we go. That's where we are.
And that's always a piece that I'm always very grateful for. Is like it is crazy to think about that this game is a flower born from the corpse of some crazy pipe dream from like old Blizzard, and we're here now. And we're
here now because they decide to like poke that dead horse of a pipe dream. Like, can we make the pipe dream happen again?
What can we do with that? Can we mulch and fertilize it? And somehow here we are.
It fucked us. The Ghost of Titan fucked us again. The whole reason I want to clarify. The whole reason I brought up this timeline of events, and I want to be clear as well. Like, this timeline of events I put out there is just my own speculation, obviously. But I think there's some logically sound stuff in there. I hope anyway. The whole reason to talk about that is this is why we got here. This is why PvE was cancelled, because the undertaking of making 2 whole ass separate games that are both live served at the same time is quite literally impossible. Proven by the fact that it's never been done. right? You can't say WoW was that because, as Yiska's mentioned, the PvP was like a fucking gingerhead child of the the PvP
Still
was some
is.
tacked on thing.
Yeah.
You look at Destiny, same shit. The 90% of the game is PvE, and a small, tiny portion is PvP. It's not its own fleshed out game.
Yeah.
Right? This shit just doesn't exist, and even in stuff like Call of Duty, which I played for the single player, that's just a campaign. The actual Call of Duty campaign itself, that's not some replayable progressive thing that you redo over and over again. That's a one and done affair. I know, because I only play it once and I never touch it again. The only thing to me that is like in the industry where it's like two separate, fully massive games that they make side by side and develop side by side, and it kind of works, is Warzone and Call of Duty multiplayer. And I don't know how they pull that off, but that would be the only example I would use in this industry where it's like two massive live service games at the same time. But even then, I would say the Warzone is way bigger than the Call of Duty multiplayer in terms of development. Like Call of Duty multiplayer, I don't keep up with that often anymore, but it seems like the dev time put into that and the features added into Call of Duty multiplayer are way less than Warzone. Warzone is clearly the fucking centerpiece, the North Star for like Activision stuff. Like that's their golden product at the moment. But you know, people just like it when I compare to other games, but it's fucking true. Look out there. None of the other big games, Apex, League of Legends, Valorant, you know, whatever, CS, Halo, maybe not Halo, but you understand, like all these games, they don't have a live service PvP with a live service PvE at the same time. It simply doesn't exist, which is why Blizzard were incredibly stupid to think that they could pull it off. And which is why I'm still disappointed. I'm very disappointed, but I'm less upset about it because I never expected this to fucking work in the first place. So when I found out PvE is dead, I'm like, yeah, that fucking makes sense. It makes sense why it's dead. I'm like, I ain't that surprised. I'm still upset. I'm still disappointed, but I ain't that surprised because it's a literally impossible task that I don't know why Blizzard thought they could do.
Also, for
I
COD,
mean, I think
really quick for COD, keep in mind there are multiple development studios developing all these different CODs,
they
right?
trade off hands.
Development studios for COD. Holy fuck.
Yeah, it's a very different setup than what we have, right?
Yeah, completely different paradigm shifting, I'd say. I remember when like PvE was talked about and announced, I think 2019. I remember like telling friends, I'm like, yeah, no, this doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't see this really being a thing. If anything, they're gonna like try to front load it. They'll sell you like, you know, a seasonal thing. It'll come with like a couple hours worth of missions, and then you're gonna have to wait for the next chapter to find out what happens to Cassidy when him and Echo get on some crazy zany missions. Find out next week. You know, it never was going at least in my mind. It never felt like that we were going to get this like gigantic new product to just back up the Brinks truck. Yeah, bring the U-Haul out. It just ship me full of content. Like what they promised was just so much. It never made any sense. That's why I think on the show I've always referenced it as like a shot in the arm, because like we're not getting a new body, guys. Like we're just hopefully we can get some injections into the IP to get people back in, and then maybe we get them into esports. I don't know, but yeah, no, I want to underline your point there, Alvaro. Like it just never made a lot of sense.
Either you have a PvP game that has PvE on the side, and it's like it's not nearly as big as the PvP, or you have a PvE game that has a little bit of PvP on the side that's not as big as the PvE game. It's one or the other. You don't. There's never been a case where there's two parallel live services for the same thing, and they're both equally big, and they're both gigantic. You would have to have the biggest development team of all fucking time, and even then, they would still have to be two completely separate parallel teams. That's not what Blizzard were. Well, I think maybe at some point they were like half developing PvP, because they were still doing some like making Echo and all of that while they were working on PvE, clearly, because they've been working on PvE since I would say at least 2017. But to my knowledge, the Overwatch team as it is currently, because people will, or this is the thing that people always say when I bring this up, is like, well, why don't Blizzard just hire more developers? Yeah, they are. They have. The Overwatch 2 team is currently the biggest it's ever been. Not pure numbers wise, it's the biggest it's ever been.
I hate that argument
it's also
too.
So hard to scale, right? Like,
but also, even if you're hiring people, you're still losing people, because we talked about the brain drain already. We talked about the fact that Blizzard keep losing people for multiple reasons. Some of it because they can't pay enough. Some of it because the RTO only have to live in Irvine, California, or whatever. Some of it because of the whole, harassment lawsuit thing that fucking impacted them. And then not. I'm not defending Blizzard, but another factor is because they fucking laid off like 800 people in 2018 or whatever it was. So what are they doing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they've clearly shot themselves in the foot as well. So they've definitely been hiring to make the team bigger, but they're also losing a lot of people for other reasons. Some of it their own fault.
Yeah, it's a death by 1,000 cuts, right? Like also a little bit where what was Eric has the tweets by Jared, who said like it's not because of the RTO policy, and I can believe that it is pretty far down the totem pole of
the reasons why
but brain drain. But come on, it's part of it, right? Like if I have to,
it's not the reason why PvE is cancelled, but it did impact PvE because people left the company.
Sure, yeah.
Like, and it would be impossible for me to even. I'm not sure what kind of evidence he could bring up. Like what exit interview comments? Like I wanted RTO. Like I don't know. Like I feel like that's a little bit cope. But I also agree that the magnitude of that impact of that policy is probably overrated. I think that was also just a direct response towards someone having an anonymous source and blah 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 blah.
Sure.
Which ended up being not as credible. I think it's also just like you're just swatting down flies at this point. I feel like you just let the H-bomb explode. You probably should just like lay low for a little.
I do kind of want to underline because there are an increasing number of former Blizzard developers creating their own social media profiles and kind of speaking about why maybe they were disillusioned or currently actively disillusioned with today's Blizzard. And there is this constant thread of having this dream to work at this, legendary company that creates all these beloved games, beating the reality of getting paid pennies to the dollar of your actual, career longevity and, what you're actually worth, your experience. And then having opportunities come knocking on your door to go elsewhere for better money and more freedom and more, better opportunities to create new things. It's not lost on me that the more that these people are coming out to talk about this, the more you start to see people also leaving for other studios. I think there's a big one that I think we export a lot of devs to. Knock on wood. Funnily enough, we did get one. And I know we talked prior to the show, but we did get one from that studio. But the model that Blizzard is kind of founded on just doesn't work anymore. Like you can't just pay people low. You can't really lowball people. Yeah, you can't just run on passion. I like that analogy. Well, a lot.
This is what a public company is. This is why I fucking hate public companies, because you live and die by this whole shareholder thing, which is why you get people like Bobby Kotick who are like such money men. Look at the Excel spreadsheet. Is a number up or down? Is a green arrow or red arrow? That's all they look at. Yeah. And it's so soulless. And this is how public companies operate. This is why private companies like Riot get to just have way more freedom to do things.
Literally whatever the fuck they want.
Because the only entity they have to answer to is Tencent. Yeah. As long as Tencent give them the thumbs up or Tencent get out of their way, they just do whatever they want. And that's Valve, same deal. Gabe Newell owns 100% of that company, as far as I'm aware. Am I wrong? He's definitely the majority owner. If it's not 100%, it's up there somewhere. It's up there near 100%.
And not
if it's
publicly traded, yeah.
And it's not publicly traded. This is the fucking difference, man. Valve, Riot, private companies. I don't know about Respawn. I can't comment on that. But Blizzard, Activision, public companies. It's all about the dollars. So that's why they can have a record year and still lay off 800 people, because you look at a spreadsheet. It's like this sector not important, because the 800 people include a lot of esports staff, and esports is just, as we know from the Blizzard point of view, esports has never been, as much as I'd like to believe it could have been a focus, it's never been truly a focus, never been truly a pillar of the company. And a lot of they keep firing community managers and esports people and all this kind of stuff just for all this other. As the people that are in the development teams are typically safe. I don't think they're laying off people in development teams, but they lay off all like the
tertiary,
extra tertiary stuff around the side, right? That is like could be deemed unnecessary. Which, to be fair, some of it might be unnecessary, but some of it we know was kind of necessary because I still know of Blizzard employees where like shit happens internally where people get fired or let go and they never get replaced, and that work just gets piled onto the remaining people who are left. And I've heard the stuff from the inside where it's just like, bro, we lost X and Y people, and now I have to do their work. My workload just increased, and I'm not getting paid more. That's what's happening on the inside. So,
and honestly, you feel it right now, right?
That's just the stupid public company bullshit that this is.
Like
it's annoying.
The wasn't the graphic like wasn't there something wrong? Like also the mystery heroes like timing and like what's actually in like these small errors just get into the production chain now, and I feel like it can be felt. Now I would say, for instance, I think to me there are noticeable differences in terms of Blizzard polish in the heroes that we're currently getting. Or in the content that we're currently getting. I don't mind the lack of polish. I think we're getting closer to the sweet spot of like perfectionism, letting go of that and putting out content much more frequently. But it's also still the case, like it's a weird situation. So one, looking into all of this, one sentence pops up very frequently currently across emails, and it's like, this is the year of Diablo, right? Like this is the year where Diablo launched, all marketing budgets are going towards that, and capital allocation is, I feel like the impact can be felt on the esports side, on the game side, and I feel like yes, what we said about this PvE endeavor is insane. I still feel like, theoretically speaking, if you threw enough capital at it, you could have probably solved it. It is possible to pull this off.
Yeah, eventually, with enough money. If you have infinite money, I believe that. But again, I think this circles back into like the publicly traded stuff, where it's just like, if Red Arrow down, no money.
A private company could throw money at this thing.
Yeah.
A publicly funded company, I don't think they can throw money at this thing because you'd have to justify to shareholders why you're now spending omega bucks on this thing. Is it going to have the return? Is this just going to be a loss? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is another one of those weaknesses of a publicly traded company at the end of the day.
And maybe it'd be a different story. Maybe we get a little bit more capital, a little bit more leeway, a little bit more time if all of the predating problems, the lawsuits, the sexual assaults, allegations, lawsuits, all of this stuff leading into this that drives down the price of the stock, creating animosity in the shareholder rooms. If that doesn't happen, maybe they're fine and dandy. They're swimming in their big V-Bucks. They're buying their kids Lamborghinis, whatever. They're happy. They're content. They're fat and happy. I don't know Blizzard stock. I don't follow it, but I can't imagine it's been healthy or super great at the moment. Maybe it's better because of the Microsoft, acquisition.
It's just tied to it at the moment, right? Like there's no much movement because of that. Yeah. And honestly, like folks really overestimate how that translates. Like when the whole scandal broke around Blizzard, barely impacted stock price. I think at the same time, like Call of Duty Mobile launched something or whatever that almost completely got rid of it. It's not that impactful to share price.
Sadly, but yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't seem possible. Maybe for reasons that I'm unaware of. Maybe the share price has never really moved all that much, and I don't know. It just doesn't seem like you can just throw the wallet at it and make it work. It just doesn't seem feasible.
I seriously question how many of the developers from the original, when I say original Overwatch 2, I mean like 2017, 2018, 2019 era of development for Overwatch 2, are still in team now in 2023.
Yeah.
The reason why that's relevant is because I have a funny feeling that this entire PvE project was like a brainchild, definitely of Jeff Kaplan, but
Yep.
of the old Team 4, the old Overwatch development team, being now shoved onto the new Overwatch development team.
Yep.
That they have to fucking solve. It's like you've been given a piece of crap and now you have to fucking deal with it. This is your problem now.
Yeah.
Right? Jeff, if you want to talk about someone who fucking did a fast one. So I got nothing against Jeff Kaplan, but dude was the game director of Overwatch 1 in 2017. He would have had to sign off on this whole like let's do PvE guys,
Yeah,
let's do Overwatch 2, which may be innocent at the time, like it seems like an innocent thing. It's like, yeah, maybe. But they set the game up for failure. They seriously set the game up for failure. That team in 2019, 2017 to 2019, pre-COVID, with what's his name? Who was the executive producer at the time? The guy that had Jared's job ages ago. Was it Sonny? What was his name? Do you know the guy I'm talking about? He left.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Sonny Overwatch. I'm just gonna Google it. I'm fucking Google it. Charco Sonny. That's the dude's name.
Yeah.
He was the EP of Overwatch Team 4 before Jared was. So he had Jared's old job. EP is a pretty high level position in that team. So he left. Jeff left.
Yep.
Bunch of other people left. Jeff Goodman left. Although I don't know how much. Maybe Jeff Goodman had some input into the talent stuff. He's a hero balance design guy, right? I don't know. So there is probably some other dude who was the writer as well. What's his name? The writer left. The artist guy left. Yeah, the artist guy left for the creative. I don't think it was a creative. The original artist guy left for NFTs, which that was a good decision. So yeah, we've just lost so many people. Some of that you could argue is brain drain. I don't know the exact reasons why everyone left.
That's true. Yeah.
Some of that could have been brain drain. Some of that could have just been like Nate Nanza taking the bag at Epic. Oh, Epic dropped him a big ass bag. I guess he just leaves. That could have happened. Could have been a number of reasons. But the point is, why I mention these guys is they essentially created something that, as we've discussed now, I personally believe was way too big of a scope to ever actually be able to be completed. So they essentially set Blizzard and they set Overwatch down a pathway that was unrecoverable from 2017. And then a bunch of these guys who made these decisions left, like Jeff and Charco Sonny. And then the 2020, 21, 2022 team had to pick up the pieces of that. And Aaron Keller, who, to be fair, he was also around during the old days. Aaron Keller's been around for a while, I think. They have to pick up the pieces, and it's like, holy fuck, what do we do with this? Like, can we actually make this game? And the answer is no. The answer is obviously no. You can't. You simply can't. And it's just it's an level and comp. This is why I have to go back to Hanlon's Razor. I brought this up in Pledge as well. It's like, guys, there's no scam involved, right? There's no malice involved. Yeah. People no one was rubbing their fucking fingertips and like, how can we fuck over the Overwatch player base? We are Overwatch developers and we are sadistic and we like fucking over people. It's like, no, these people have jobs. Their lives are attached to this game, to the success of this game. Blizzard, there's a lot of things you can criticize Blizzard about. But one thing Blizzard is held strong to, sometimes to their detriment, is they love money. Thanks, Bobby Kotick. And because they love money, we know for a fact they're not going to do anything that's going to make them less money. And one thing that would definitely make them less money is to purposely sabotage themselves because of this weird narrative that you think they want to scam their own player base and they don't like their own play, all this kind of bullshit. It's like, dude, no, they want to do the thing that's smart that will make them the most money. So do you think this entire development team is just full of malice and they're doing this on purpose because they are spiteful and they're bad people, or do you think they're just like incompetent? There's a lot of incompetency. I think it's the latter. I think it's way easier to explain all of this through the lens of incompetency, where they just simply fucked up because they just bit off more than they could chew, and they overpromised and underdelivered, which is the line I said last time. And that's how we got here, because they just fucked up. They simply fucked up. They even admitted to that.
I'll run you this as well. Even if we did still have the old, Blizzard, the Overwatch Vanguard, we still had, Kaplan, whoever, Sonny, whoever, you name it, they're still here.
Sonny.
I still think the motto there, the mantra that I think you really need to underline, if that's that kind of monologue, Avril, is the overpromised and underdelivered, right? I think that is pretty exemplary of Blizzard in most of their announcements. They tend to say a whole lot and have to backtrack, which is, I think fairly common for business. This is probably a precedent for them, a very large precedent, a very big retraction. And even if we did still have all hands on deck, we had great money to throw at it. I still think we come in today, 2023, and it's probably not what we were promised. It's probably
still can't deliver.
Fraction. Yeah. It's
that's what I'm
changed
saying.
in some way. Yeah.
It's not just that we have less. We actually don't have less people. As I've said, the Overwatch team has grown.
Right. Sure.
It's not a pure numbers thing. What I'm saying is that the old people that were in charge, like Jeff and Chuck and whatever, who created this idea of the OW2 PvE thing, then left and dumped this on the new Overwatch team.
Yep.
You just fucking set everyone up for failure. That's what I'm trying to say.
No. I agree there.
And I really hate that everyone just seemed to have fucking failed upward from this. Like whoever, like for all I know, Overwatch League was pitched by Nate Nanzer, and he now has a balling job at Epic, right? While creating
he
a system
doesn't even do
never-
esports there. He got hired there to do esports at Epic, not even currently his job.
Yeah.
Doesn't even do that anymore.
Yeah, it's
Just saying.
that's the like. I feel like these contract structures just have to change, where you fucking have to attach a cruise ship anchor to your career if this just goes south. You can't just like install systems that you don't see through, right? And
yeah,
it is interesting to think about why some of these key people left. I think a lot of them will have left because of the temperature that was created from Activision and whatnot. I also think there's very possibly a case where like that incompetence was made obvious, and it was clear that those guys weren't the ones to be able to realize the vision that was impossible to make with the resources available in the first place, right? And then they were kicked off, right? I think it also, to be fair, the incompetence is a little bit harsh to say, because I think what we're experiencing is almost like a meta shift, like we're currently going from GOATs to like a real FPS once again, where it's you first had like developing a full game experience and like you get a couple of years and then you drop it for $60 going into live service, right? And it makes perfect sense to me that not all developers will be able to acclimate to these environments, right? It very clearly has different, like as different as it is to be someone that's good at perfecting a meta, or someone that's good in hero pools. The same probably is true in practically every profession, and I think like the selection process that we had to go through also makes sense. The real upsetting part is that I think the writing on games as service being like a really not just lucrative but also world-leading strategy was already on the wall. And to think about what could have been if they just didn't commit to this early, as you said, like 2017. I think I heard it a little bit later, but very clearly, like at some point a ton of developers were just like taken off the game, and then we had the infamous content drought. It's just like the what if of Overwatch and Overwatch esports, if they just continue to this shit, is nuts, right? Like it's one of the biggest what ifs of gaming history. The game. Yes.
Yep.
One of the biggest what ifs of gaming history. The fact that it is still this big is nuts, right? And to just extrapolate from what it could have been if we had not just sat on our asses in terms of like the live game development for 2.5 years. Yeah, that's it, and it makes even less sense to me. Maybe it's a rounding error, a $500 million league, but the people involved in this, like I just wonder, like, what the fuck folks are thinking, even at the executive level, because like there's clearly some incentive structures to, you know, make an appealing product there. And the only way I can imagine that this was justified is that something in the contracts of the Overwatch League teams clearly stipulated that Overwatch 2 had to launch. And that they had to meet this goal as well. I think like the Overwatch League itself is probably big enough to have a sway on content. I will even say it is very likely that we did get PvP at the point that we did, Overwatch 2,
because
of
Yes.
Overwatch League.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like
that's huge.
All of this just interdependently, I think like maybe there was sway there, and the incentive structures internally look differently, but from the outside, it's just such a like high level shit decision to tank this for 2.5 years instead of just keeping going. And like this could be the biggest game in the world if it was free to play at the time and everything.
There's two parts to this. One part is let's rewind to 2019 where we got our last content, then we had a huge drought, and then there's a second part which is holy shit, we have to get Overwatch 2 out as a PvP. So there was the period of time where they were developing Overwatch 1, then stopped developing it, and they started going full steam on Overwatch 2 PvE. And then the end of that period would have been when they stopped developing Overwatch 2 PvE and realized, holy shit, we actually have to launch this game. And I believe that would have been about 18 months was the timeline before the launch of Overwatch 2 last year, October. So 18 months before October last year, they switched gears and went full PvP, is how I understand the timelines worked. And those are the two separate stages. I'll speak to the latter stage first before I speak to the former one. The latter stage about them shifting gears. Now that you bring it up, the Overwatch League absolutely had, I think, some impact on forcing the hand of Team 4, which might sound like ridiculous to some people out there, and I understand that it can, but understand that Overwatch League teams have a level of buy-in and have a level of investment that has like full legal pressure behind it, where if Overwatch 2 didn't come out, I'm pretty sure there'd be grounds for a lawsuit there for Overwatch League teams if Overwatch 2 didn't come out.
It's bad enough as it is now.
Because
can't imagine what it would look like.
Yeah, I mean I think I don't know what the stage of the lawsuit is for the teams currently. This one might be slightly more for show, but the one before that could have been if Overwatch 2 didn't come out.
Yeah.
That one would not have been for show. That one wouldn't have some real bite behind it. So there is that factor. Now, there's a couple ways of analyzing that. Is it a good thing or a bad thing that the Overwatch League teams forced the hand of Team 4 in a way? And you could argue it's a bad thing because they had to stop developing PvE and all this kind of stuff, and they had to shift gears. You could also argue it was a good thing because it meant they had to fucking release the game and do something instead of fucking being in a content drought. Because how long would it have taken us to get anything Overwatch 2 that resembles Overwatch 2? And by the way, resembling Overwatch 2 just means like they're developing the PvP again, something's playable. How long would it have taken? Would it not have happened till this year, next year? How would it have been 4 years, 5 years of a content drought? How long are we willing to have a content drought? We can argue that they shouldn't have had a content drought in the first place, which I'll get to in a second, because that's part one of the story. But part two of the story, I'm doing this reverse order because I want to talk about the teams first. I still think ultimately, if you had to pick your poison, you had to really pick your poison here. The teams forcing Team 4 to go for the PvP pathway is probably still better for the long-term vision of the game than if we had a 5-year-long content drought instead of 3-year-long, right? I truly believe that. So it is still better for the game. That's why I think the as frustrating as it is for them to drop the PvE, it is probably still the right call to make, because if they didn't drop the PvE, both sides of the game probably would have suffered. The PvP would have suffered, the PvE would have suffered, or they would have to do the whole content drought again where they go full steam on PvE and we just now Overwatch 2 PvP is dead in the water just like Overwatch 1 was. So the options on the table are develop both poorly or develop one poorly and the other one suffers. And you can pick, you want the PvP to suffer or you want the PvE to suffer. And because the PvE already picked up steam and we're already on our way in, outside of Jungle Queen being fucking busted at the moment, the game is in an okay state. It's in a reasonably positive state outside the bad PR. If you just focus objectively on the game and forget about the PR for a second, the game objectively is like okay, it's fine. And so why would you sacrifice that now when, you know, that's the core part of the game, and the PvE always felt like the wild, fantastical thing that probably should have never been, which is why, like, as frustrating as this is to say, and I know people are going to hate me for saying this, yeah, Jared and the team and Aaron Keller, unfortunately, they made the right call, because if they didn't make this call, I'm pretty sure the entire game on both sides, on all sides, would have massively fucking suffered. But this is where, and you guys can step in if you want, this is where we can just lament about the fact that we even had a content drought in the first place. That you want to talk about me being upset? The thing that really upsets me
that's the more upsetting part.
is not the fact that we lost PvE now. It's the fact that it even became a discussion point in the first place, which then caused us to have a 3-year content drought. That's the part that upsets me. The fact that we lost 3 years of content, that we just had a fucking hiatus for 3 years, that is what truly angers me. This part, this is the end result of something that was created several years ago. The end result is not what is like, this is, again, why am I less upset than everybody else? Because the thing that I'm actually upset about fucking happened several years ago. That's what that's the thing that everyone should be upset about.
True.
This thing now is just where we came to. The real problem started so long ago. That's the part you need to be upset about.
Yep. And
And
that's the people
my
you
toys
need to
out.
hold
I don't
to.
get my toys anymore.
That's the
You were never going to
folks
get them in the first place. You would. That was unfortunately, that was just. I won't say it's a lie, because I don't think they lie implies malice.
No.
I don't like the word people saying, "Oh, Blizzard are liars." The problem I have with that position is that implies malice. I don't think Blizzard would try. Like, again, no one was sitting in the board like, "Hey, let's lie to our audience about PvE."
Yeah.
They weren't saying that. They truly believed at the time that they could do it. Benefit of the doubt, they truly believe they could probably
Fully
pull it off.
believe they believe they could do it.
And just like the Overwatch League, I don't think Nate Nanza was fucking
Sure.
twirling his fucking, you know, just doing this thing with his fingers like, hey, I'm going to scam people with Overwatch League. No, they also truly believe they could pull that off. And to be fair, at the time, we didn't know what city-based teams and all that was going to look. No one had done that in esports yet. So fucking fair enough. Let's see what happens. So my point is, like, all these things are done with good intention, because I think it could, everyone thinks it could maybe get pulled off. And it isn't clear until a little bit further down the line that you can't. My problem for Blizzard is it took them so fucking long to realize that they couldn't pull it off, that like it had to happen now. Instead of the plug being pulled ages ago, it had to be pulled now. Yeah, way too far down the line.
That's kind of the sick joke of it all. You know, listening to Yiska, you talk about like, oh, going back, like thinking of how big Overwatch could be if we didn't have this 3-year content drought. You know, think of, you know, AVRL, you're talking about, you know, how you got to think of a world where we don't have Overwatch League and its pressure to help decouple the PvE elements from PvP, and how maybe the game is just put on hiatus or just delayed indefinitely into the ether, and we never get Overwatch 2 PvP, and we're just stuck on, you know, a fairly decent Overwatch 1 patch for, you know, 5 or 6 years now at this point, right? It is a sick joke that they constantly tell us to dare to see the world for what it could be. And that's all we're doing right now, is just seeing what could have been with Overwatch.
Oh, that is the real irony of that joke, is it works both ways, because if you really inspect that line, that is also the full perfectionist line as well. It's like, oh, we could do anything. It was dare to see the world for what it could be. We could be the first company to make 2 side-by-side AAA games, both live servers at the same time, even though no one in history has ever fucking done that for a good fucking reason. Dare to see the world do. Oh, it's like, well, at that point you could just do it. At that point you could just fucking magically do anything.
I'm gonna cure cancer through monkeys in space.
Like normally sentences of that type usually end with, "Okay, pass it over." Like, this is just fucking nuts. Like, all of that. And honestly, let me also say this: I actually feel way better about decisions making from the top down than I ever did. I think our incentive structures are great. Like, that's the big one, right? Like, if you think about, like, how does this company make money and how does it fulfill my needs or goals, it's way more aligned than it ever was, right? I feel like the triage is a good one. I think the big one for me is the communication strategy once again is lacking.
It is.
But the general decision making. Once again, I'm a fan of trying all these kinds of different ways in the seasons to have like all kinds of creative products, and also it feels like more of the team is now tied in. And like someone had an interesting thought of like junior developers having a lot of time on Star Watch, for instance, and getting to learn what creation is like. It feels like to them, those are devs as well, that this is the purpose sort of that mode as well. It was my cup of tea, but like once again, like the process of just like doing the tried and true until we no longer it no longer is interesting. Like you gotta reinvent yourself, and you're not going to reinvent yourself without frequent iteration of hyper creative like approaches. Just stop with the additional game modes, that shit, or maps or whatever. Put that development time into anything else that's like double down on stuff that works well, like heroes. Heroes pog off every time. Right, like they are huge attention creators. The whole other spiel, like whatever, and then when you don't have a big winner or any other big winners, keep searching, keep looking for other big winners instead of like creating things that really, I mean, that like I guess push overall, like for me personally, no, but like for the player base is a plus. But is it a big win? It doesn't feel like a big win.
It doesn't feel like it. No, nobody's like pogging off at new game modes. It feels too like vapid and airy for anybody to be like, oh, I'm excited about this. I think people are generally excited when there's new archive events. And that's basically what we're getting now, right? We're getting new kind of bite-sized hero PvE missions that people are going to be excited about, and they'll come in doses.
You know what the real true neutral take of all of this is? And that, by the way, is my firm position on all this is to be true neutral. Because I don't believe in being childishly, emotionally knee-jerky about all of this, which sounds accusatory towards certain people, and it probably is. Not anyone that people know. I'm not attacking any of my colleagues, because I have respect for everyone that I work with, and I love them all, and they're all my friends. I'm more talking about like the random people who spam the Play Overwatch Twitch channel this morning because they are fucking children. Anyway, enough about that. The true neutral position on this, and the reason why I have a true neutral position, is because, man, people are not going to like me for saying this either. There's a lot of, I've had to repeat that a few times, and the reason why is like you have to really inspect the words that I'm saying and understand that like why I've come to these conclusions. I blame the old Overwatch team, not the current one. Because when you really, this is the reason why I went through all this excruciating detail in the timelines and the history, because you need to understand that a lot of this, in my opinion, is the fault of the original Overwatch dev team, which was led by Jeff Kaplan, for even having the brainchild of this PvE in the first place, which caused all this bullshit. So people are currently blaming the current Overwatch team as if it was some monolith, even though so many of the team members, especially the executive team members from the Overwatch 1 guys, are gone. Blaming the current Overwatch team is super low-hanging fruit, and people who are emotionally upset want a pinata to fucking bat it. They want something to attack, and so they'll attack me, or they'll attack the Overwatch. Like, even because I'm not as emotionally upset as everyone else, they'll want to attack me as well. But the reason why I'm not emotionally upset is because, logically speaking, I don't blame the current dev team. Yep, there it is. There's the line. That's the line people are going to hate me for. I don't blame the current dev team. In fact, I think the current dev team made the right choice, because it's the only logical choice to make. They had to pick up the pieces from the Overwatch 1 dev team that created this whole fucking mess. They had to deal with that. The Overwatch 1 dev team was like, sweet, peace out. I'm out of here. Here, you deal with this problem now. That's the fucking reality. That's legitimately the reality of what's happening here. It's like, what did you want the Overwatch 2 dev team to do? Continue down this pathway of making a game that was impossible, or put it out anyway and have like both PvE and PvE be fucking garbage because you had to split dev time and resources across two things that were never going to work together at the same time, outlined by the reasons already outlined. I'm not going to repeat again for the nth time. Or do you want them to abandon PvP for PvE again? So they made the choice. They're going to abandon PvE for PvP, because PvP is still the base game. That was the game that was released in 2016. A PvP multiplayer. Jeff said competitive shooter. Okay, it is competitive, but
Shooter,
not for everyone. That's the base game. The base game has never been about the PvE. That was the pipe dream that they tried to tack onto the game. That shouldn't have been attached to the game at all. That's the pipe dream. The pipe dream is dead. But my argument from the start has always been the pipe dream was never going to fucking work out.
Yeah.
So it had to die. It had to die, but the upsetting thing is it had to die this late instead of it dying way fucking earlier. That should have been aborted very quickly. We should not have even gone to the stage where it was announced at BlizzCon.
No, yeah, 100%. And I think that even the people who did play it at BlizzCon were very like underwhelmed. Like, oh, this seems weird. And the fact that it is taken this long, like, I think has drawn a lot of speculation of that realm as well, where it's just like, okay, did they just like scrap everything and like redo it? Like, why is this taking forever?
No, because at the time they hadn't gone on hiatus yet. Remember, it was after that the content stopped releasing. Which I remember talking to people at the time, and some of the content creators, and they had some opinions about this, which was like, dude, if it was just a 1 year hiatus, maybe it would have been acceptable.
Sure,
because everyone thought, okay, oh yeah, you look at the BlizzCon stuff. 2019, Overwatch 2's announced. It looks pretty done because the hero mission was really polished. The Rio de Janeiro stuff, super polished, right? You can even look up the video footage yourself.
Yeah,
XQC or whoever's playthrough. It's
not bad.
Looks pretty damn polished to me. It's like a fully complete level. However, this happens so often in the gaming industry. You're going to get one demo that looks omega polished, and everything else is just not quite there yet. Yep. So you get. That's the snake oil is that one exact pillar is super polished and the rest of the pillars don't exist. So a bunch of the content creators I spoke to were like, dude, we thought the game was just going to come out the year after. It's like, oh, yep, announced in 2019, looks pretty done, released by the end of 2020, and that would have been okay. But we had no idea how far behind they were. They were so far behind that they had to cancel in 2023. That's how far behind they were.
Yep.
And to be fair, they were far behind because it was too big to complete anyway. That's the real joke.
It constantly, like, as we kind of think through this more and more and more, and we go through like the painful history of it, it does just kind of sound like a dying limb, and just the game was just sick for a really long time.
It was,
and like now
you gotta cut it off.
Yeah, we cut it off now, and ironically, and maybe this is like pure copium that I'm huffing, because I like the analogy that you kind of plant in my head when you talk about like, oh, like the demo's really good is like No Man's Sky, right? Like, you want to talk about one of like the most juiced like demos to terrible products produced, and then it eventually just becoming a success story through like constant improvements and iteration. Is it crazy for me to say that I think that like PvE may end up being a success story because we lopped off a finger, maybe an arm?
I think that's a little far-fetched. I think the far more realistic outcome is that the story missions are okay and they're acceptable. People will hate on it. Dude, I'm
sure,
of the
of
belief
course.
Maybe it's just because of how people reacted now, but people are so mad that even if they release, like I said this on Pledges as well, even if they release 100 story missions, and I'm being mega hyperbolic right now, which I hate doing, so I have to check myself to not be a hypocrite, but for the sake of my argument, I'm going to be a little bit hyperbolic, which I think is purely cancerous. But even if they released 100 missions, people would find a reason to be upset about it just because they're currently upset now.
Yeah.
And that comment will also make people upset, so, keep crying. But my point is instead of going the PvE route and trying to like fix that and like, oh, let's do the No Man's Sky PvE, they should just make the PvP as good as possible. Focus, like, stay in. I just want Overwatch to stay in its lane. Like, I want games, and when they're developed, games are good when they stay in their lane. In my opinion, right? You look at all the best games in history, all the best games now. The best games have a singular direct vision that they stick to. Everything that's good about it, they just stick to that. They don't try and do all these other things and try and like switch genres or introduce this or that thing that's unrequired. They don't try and reinvent the wheel. Brother, just keep polishing the same wheel. If the wheel works, keep polishing the same wheel. If they just like go down, this is why I think again that the Overwatch 2 team made the correct decision to cut off the necrotic arm, the necrotic limb of Overwatch PvE, which was created by the Overwatch 1 team, Get rid of that shit so they can just focus on PvP and make that as good as possible. Not because I think PvE is not worth exploring, but because I think it's not executable. Not to the vision they sold, which also means they did oversell the vision, which is a perfectly fine position to have. I think they oversold the vision as well by way too much. It's just not worth doing.
I think the end product that we will eventually get and that we will revisit in, multiple years, I think it will be overall positive. I think people are going to get that PvE scratch. It's not going to be to the scale like we've talked about for, a number of reasons, but I do think that this still will be it will be the entire package of Overwatch will still be an impressive feat. It'll still be good. It is. I agree with you. I think the most disappointing and frustrating thing is that it's taken us this long to realize that we were sick and that PvE kind of had to go. At least the idea of Overwatch 2 PvE.
If you look at the people, and I'm going to speak beyond myself because I wouldn't even include myself in this category. I was going to say the PvP crowd. I barely play the PvP as it is currently. I'll play a bit of quick play. I don't really care though. I even consider myself, like, overall, if you would ask me what type of gamer I am, currently in 2023 at my age, I would consider myself way more of a PvE player than a PvP player currently, like way more. So I probably align close to the PvE crowd, and even I'm like, whatever. But my point is, the people that are the least upset about this are like the pure PvP crowd. That to them, this wasn't going to make a difference anyway. They were just going to keep playing the PvP, right? So, I don't know. I think that's why one of my positions is that the thing that's really upsetting is that people feel betrayed and they feel lied to and they feel like they had the rug pulled out from under them. Not so much that there's actually no PvE. Like the factual part of not having a PvE, I think is not as bad as the part where they feel betrayed. That's the actual emotional side, because it could have been anything. It could have been remove PvE from the conversation and add any other feature, any other big thing that you wanted to justify Overwatch 2. Because that's the other thing is, I agree with the people that are upset right now. I fully agree with the side of the narrative of being upset that, Overwatch 2 was delayed. We had the hiatus. The entire sequel, number 2 number was attached to this, and justified by the PvE. That I fully agree with. And that also makes me upset, for the record. That also upsets me. So, because I hate the Overwatch 2. I wish it was not called Overwatch 2. I wish to God they never called this Overwatch 2 and it was still just Overwatch.
Yes.
Because this number 2 thing has caused so many fucking headaches and issues that are just unbelievable that we would have avoided had we not called it Overwatch 2. I still think that's a major mistake. So that I fully sympathize with. I'm fully agreeing with the upset crowd about, like, the wasting 3 years, calling it a sequel, trying to justify a sequel off something that no longer exists. I got no qualms with that, brother. You can throw me into the chaotic evil side for that one, but for everything else, I'm going to stay true neutral, because I think having a measure, there's nothing wrong with having a measure take. I think I don't know if Eric wants to bring up the Jason Schreier tweet. That's probably one of the best takes and one of the best positions I've seen on this entire situation. And strangely, Ludwig's position was pretty neutral as well. Like, Ludwig had no emotional response to this. He stuck purely to the facts, in my opinion. He had the articles ready. He had all the links ready. And he just stuck to the facts. And because he's not an Overwatch player, so this doesn't really affect him. Which is why he was, like, neutral about it. And I think a lot of people it's not their fault they're like this, but a lot of people naturally are pretty emotional. And I'm just not a very emotional person. I'm a person, generally speaking, pretty devoid of emotion, except for anger, which I like to get into sometimes. But I'm very selective about anger. I don't just choose to get angry about everything. I'm very selective about my anger. I like to save it. I like to bank it up. I like to build it up like an ultimate and release it when I'm ready, like a primal rage.
Are you like a no-fapper for
He's
anger?
ulting.
Hey?
Are you like a no-fapper for anger?
Yeah, just build it up, and then, like, just release it in one big full fell swoop. So this is why I have a neutral position on this, because, like, I had not great expectations for this in the first place, but I was optimistic. Dude, I was mad hoping. The reason why I never spoke out against PvE or anything like that, because A, I like PvE and I want to play it, and 2, I really wanted to see Overwatch succeed. And like I was so Overwatch pilled and Blizzard pilled and seeing this thing
Mhm.
succeed that I just didn't bother I never bothered questioning it because I so needed and so wanted to see it succeed. So I was like, fuck it. Everything logically in my brain said this is bullshit. But I just never questioned it. I just never questioned it because I wanted so badly to believe it could work.
Yeah.
I feel that. Feel it. Any final amendments?
I'll read
Any
this out.
final?
Jason Schreier, by the way, who's someone I respect a lot as a very good reporter, and if you know anything about me, I don't have a lot of respect for most journalists, and I know you're both journalists, but obviously the fact that I'm here means I do respect you guys at least to some degree. No, I'm talking about the fucking, you know who I'm talking about,
Yes.
the Polygons and the Kotakus. Those motherfuckers who like to write misleading headlines and all the clickbait. I'm not going to get into a tirade about modern day 2023 journalism, but Jason Schreier is one of the good ones. This is a good dude. This is a good journalist who uncovered a lot of stuff in gaming development in the past. This is the guy that talked about Anthem. There's a lot of parallels there, by the way, in terms of like just wasted development time, unclear vision, unclear direction, and then like there's this fucking cram session at the end to try and push something out. A single demo that was just this like one mega polished pillar, which is what they revealed at E3, and the rest of the game being like complete missing or garbage or whatever. Jason Schreier's uncovered a lot. I think this guy also broke some news about Overwatch at several stages as well. So, yeah, he says, I'll be reporting plenty on Overwatch 2 in the future, but for now, maintaining a live service game is hard enough without building a totally new game on top. Exactly. Which is hard enough without constant company crisis, which is hard enough without massive attrition worth some empathy. And he got a lot of hate for that, to the point where he has to do a bunch of replies to try and, what would be the right term here? Try and like contextualize things more. Because I feel for him, it's like in 280 characters, it might be hard to contextualize things, but people have such bad faith on the internet in terms of how they interpret things. There's so many bad faith motherfuckers, and they do this to me as well. So many bad faith motherfuckers. Well, they will come in and purposely try and have the worst possible interpretation of a message possible. What is the worst way I can interpret this message? What is the way I can attribute and assume the greatest amount of malice, which doesn't exist in this message? And that's what they've done to Jason Schreier. When I think he's probably had one of the better takes so far, because there's no emotion here. It's pure factual statements, and he's a good dude who I trust.
I think like I recently learned a word called mood affiliation, and it's basically like you're in a mood of a thing, and you then apply that mood over your, like you have the mood first, and then you're trying to rationalize why you're feeling this. It's not that you rationalize and therefore you get angry, right? Like the order of operation is off, right? And this is what it feels like. I feel like folks
and they also
go on.
They also can't believe that other people don't feel the same thing at the exact same time.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, we're capable of having different feelings. Are we not different people? Like, Jesus Christ. It's like people are accusing me of like trying to play devils as if I secretly held the same opinion as I mostly have held most of the same opinions. I just reacted differently. As if I was like trying to be obtuse or trying to be, weirdly contrarian about it for the sake of it. It's like, that's not my personality. I do it sometimes on purpose to like annoy people and just like to poke the bear because it's funny to me. Because I have a bit of a sadist nerve. But for the most part, when I'm being serious like I am right now, it's like that's just not how I operate. Like this is I run through a logic algorithm, and my opinion is what gets output at the end. I feel like Jason has arrived at many of the same conclusions. In fact, I pretty much just agree across the board with what he says here, and he has to. Imagine reading this tweet and thinking, wow, I can't believe Jason's asking me to empathize with Activision executives who own multiple houses while I'm out of this website. So yeah, he's clearly just talking about the dev team. He's not talking about Bobby Kotick anything.
Yeah, no. Yeah. He's talking about the effort being put into an undertaking that I think we've underlined was kind of impossible. I think that's fair. I think that's fair to say.
Oh, well. Yeah. I think like we're better off when all is settled.
100%.
I'm kind of interested to see where this goes.
That's a hard pill to swallow, by the way. That's a concrete
Yep.
pill to swallow, but I think it's the correct pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm cautiously pessimistic, I will say, about what these PvE missions will end up looking like. I think there's a potential where people will go, wait, didn't you tell me PvE was dead and this is actually pretty cool? But there's also
God.
Okay, this is.
I almost think that's
not
worse.
really fun,
dude. I guarantee this will be the reaction. I guarantee this will be a reaction in season 6. There will be a non-insignificant group of people that'll log in. They won't even log in. They'll just see the headlines. They'll see other people playing it. They'll be like, "Wait, I thought PvE was dead. Why is there PvE?" There'll be a significant number of those people because the current content creation algorithm, journalism, clickbaity headline meta is you got to be as hyperbolic as possible to get the clicks. And what does that breed? That breeds a hyperbolic mindset in all the consumers. I truly believe that. That's why everyone reacts to everything in as extreme of a manner as possible, to the point where like no one cares about the actual objective truth anymore. It's just like, no, I'm just going to validate these feelings. Like, I'm upset, so I don't care that the headline that says PvE is completely dead isn't 100% true.
Yeah.
We're going to run with that narrative, and I'm going to get upset at anybody that doesn't also run with that narrative. Whereas I think reasonable people who take a middle ground and can just slow down for a second and don't get too pent up. Don't try not to lose sleep over this challenge. Just be like, okay, well, like a lot of this is gone. They've downscaled. I can understand why they've done this. And the concrete pill to swallow, the extremely hard pill to swallow, is that sadly it's probably the right call to make. And I think way too many people probably still think that PvE was definitely doable and Blizzard just purposely screwed us over because it's fun. It's funny for them or something like that.
Yeah.
And like, for the bad faith Andys that are going to look at that sentence that AVRL just uttered, that this is better off, we're better off, it is under the very obvious context that we are better off currently unshackling the developers from an idea that really wasn't theirs, removing the albatross around their neck proverbially, and moving on. Yes, we are better off contextually right now.
They will dislike me for that comment because in their minds they think PvE is still possible, whereas I don't. I very specifically do not think that the vision that they've set out for PvE is possible at all.
Yeah.
Forget about doable, forget about like, attempt, nothing. Not even possible. I straight up think it's impossible. Okay, within context, to be fair, I don't want to be too much of a hypocrite here. That's maybe slightly hyperbolic on my end. Is anything really impossible? I guess with infinite money, you could do it.
Yes.
I guess if you had 100,000 developers and infinite money, you could probably do it. But you have to be realistic here as well. Let's not get into that stupid fight about that semantic. Okay, I am talking through the lens of like what is actually realistic as well, and what is realistic for a publicly traded company is that is not possible because you're not going to get that humongous. What are you going to do? Like take the entire World of Warcraft team off World of Warcraft to work on this? What are you going to do? Like you can't. What are you going to do? Hire the entire everyone? How many developers do you think exist in the world? There's not just there's not an infinite number of developers you can just hire, dude. And you'd have to probably poach a bunch from other companies. And why would they want to work for Blizzard right now? They're probably getting way better deals than other companies. Where are you finding these? Bro, people just think there's like armies of developers out there like trying to get hired who Blizzard are turning a blind eye to and not hiring. Bro, what do you mean? Where are these developers that are not being hired? Blizzard are hiring people. They have. So yeah, people will be mad at that concrete pill to swallow because they'll reject the pill because they think PvE is possible, and they think if the current Overwatch team just said, "Oh, we're wrong, sorry, we'll continue work on PvE," then everything will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, if you take the red pill and you fucking see through the bullshit, you realize that PvE was never going to be possible. And if you look at it through the lens that I have, you'll understand why I've reached the conclusion that I have and why I'm not as upset. I'm not as upset because I've already accepted that none of this was real in the first place.
Yeah. And I think I won't speak for Yiska, but I think I'm very much aligned with your stance where it's the operative sentence there is not I'm not upset. It's I'm not as upset. There are plenty of things to be upset about, and I think we've underlined them. But yeah, I don't think there's much to be big mad about. What was promised was really never going to come in the form that you thought it was.
The one thing that I will say is, I feel like, especially like now from an esports point of view, and yes, like the argument of like, oh, if PvE popped off, that would have trickled down into esports, blah blah blah. It's
Probably not.
like probably was not going to be a huge one, but it is pretty hard to see what things are on the horizon in order to pull this card out of the mud at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And PvE was one of the paradigm shifting events for, I guess, this IP that could have rapidly made a difference. And it feels like we need rapid improvements. And
we do now.
Yeah.
Did we before? Like, was Overwatch 2 really in that bad of a state? I feel like people way over exaggerate that position. Now, if you want to, now there's two angles. If you wanted to take the angle that it's bad because we sacrificed 3 years for this, then I agree.
Yeah.
Under that context, I 100% agree with you. But if we just look objectively in a vacuum of where Overwatch 2 is today, currently in the PvP alone, is it really in that bad of a state? Because people are acting like this is the death of Overwatch because we don't have PvE. When
something
again,
we still didn't have.
Exactly. When you look at it through my lens, we were never gonna fucking have it. So what difference does it make?
Yeah.
We were never gonna have it. This is why I view this as a PR crisis.
Yeah,
it's not
100% it is.
This is it's a PR disaster.
And it's
because
bad,
Blizzard overpromised something they couldn't deliver.
Yep.
And they also, by the way, oh my God, they failed to communicate what was going to be delivered.
Yep.
At no point during the entire monologue that Jared and Aaron gave did they actually outline, it's like, hey, this is how I would have delivered that speech instead. Like, hey, we have to redefine. Don't use that word because the redefine thing has already been used before. Can't use that one twice. So let's not use that word. We'll say this instead. We'll say we need to readdress our current direction with PvE because we've realized that the amount of work and the amount of resource that would have to go into delivering upon the 2019 vision is no longer viable. That being said, we're shifting focus on the PvE away from hero missions into the story missions instead. We're going to be repackaging and reallocating some of the resources and assets we built for the hero missions into the story missions instead and focusing on that as our new direction for PvE. If they said fucking that, which I think is what it is, by the way, could be wrong, but that's what I think it is. If they said that, things would be much better. But they failed to communicate what we're actually getting, and that's why people think we're not getting anything.
Yep.
That's why people think PvE is fully dead, because they didn't fucking communicate what we're actually getting.
And the information is there, but it's not front and center, and sadly, that's what you need today.
Especially not when journalists and content creators are fucking mega hyperbole dooming.
I would say, like, for the content creators specifically that have hitched their ride to Overwatch and who make the decision to stay in this IP, assuming that this will pop off when the PvE launches, I have more sympathy to them than a random journalist that just like jumps like into the scene every once in a while and gets some easy clicks, right? Like, I totally understand that if this was really like all, like, you know, the SVBs, the Flats, the Samitos, all of those guys, that is a big fucking shot to the groin for them, right? Like, I totally understand that this is a completely different emotional situation than, you know, for a random journalist.
Yeah, it sucks, and it is. I the more that we talk about it, the more optimistic for the future I am for the game. Not like we're gonna explode and get crazy, and you know, there's some golden parachute that's gonna come save us. But I think we have the right foot forward. Communication, obviously, there's still some looking at, but yeah.
You just lost a lot of faith in the game as well. You just lose a lot of trust in the game. That's the major downside.
Agreed.
And that's justified. I think, I personally lost a lot of trust there as well. And I think that it's justified that people have lost trust because, I mean, as much as I don't like the L word, the lie, technically speaking,
It's
I
hard.
guess it is. I guess it is a bit of a lie. I would seriously take another look at the intention behind that, because I don't think there was malice behind it. It's purely incompetence from my perspective in terms of what I think actually happened. They just fucked up and tried to do something that wasn't able to be done, and so they had to correct it. I don't know, and think about this to the people that are still not happy with that answer. Think about if you were in Jared and Aaron Keller's shoes right now in this position, you had to pick up the pieces of what Chaco Sonny and Jeff Kaplan left behind.
Mm-hmm.
What is the correct thing to do?
Yep.
Do you just make a half-ass PvE that people are going to hate? Do you cancel the PvP and focus only on the PvE? Like, dude, these are some hard choices to make. This was not an easy choice. Like, none of the pathways look good. Imagine you're Jared. You come from Riot. You didn't even work on Overwatch 1. You're Jared. You come from Riot. You come here to try and fix Blizzard's problems.
Yep.
And you see this pile of shit, which is the PvE. You're like, holy fuck, how are we going to navigate this? This is not doable, guys. What are you guys thinking? Like, one of the biggest things you see, one of the interviews Jared said, one of the biggest things he had focused on since he'd been here is restructuring the structures of the teams, like fixing that, because that was a mess.
Yep. I think the other thing that I got from that like roadmap discussion in general, that I think everybody is kind of like, tunneling in on, is the difficulty. I think that was maybe misplaced in terms of like weight, because I feel like I agree with you, Avril, that like a reassuring tone may have paid off way more. Like, rest assured, guys, PvE is still coming. It's just going to be a little bit different, just letting people know, anticipating the emotional response and making sure that people realize that, like,
you got to have some good news with the bad.
Yeah.
Is that not the law of delivering bad news? Like, at least bring some good news to the table, fellas. Like, isn't that part of it?
That's I think that's the underlying, another thing to be, I think rightfully justifiably frustrated with is the obfuscated communication of like what's actually happening. Yes, we saw the big, infograph where like there's hero missions, but what does that mean? What are they? Are we getting communication later? I know that we like to do these community updates and label them with numbers, maybe referencing that there'll be more, but we don't really utilize those either. So that's frustrating.
It's like they failed to consider what the community narrative is going to be and get ahead of that. Yeah. Time and time again, they failed to do that. And again, the whole PR behind it is not like to lie or to mislead people. No. It's to do the opposite. It's to correctly inform so that the general public don't do the misleading. Again, it's the content creators and the journalists doing the misleading. And as you said, maybe some of the content creators are justified in that because they're frustrated. And I fully get it because they've tied their careers to this thing. Yep. And to be honest, I have as well, which is why you might be surprised that I'm less upset anyway. Whereas the journalist vultures, bro, they're just fucking here for some clicks, man. Fuck those guys. So if you want to get it, and they had to change the GameSpot the headline because they did an exclusive interview with GameSpot, and GameSpot had a mega misleading title, which they then had to change later on through clarification from the Blizzard Overwatch team. You
know what that screams? Lawsuit.
Yeah,
you better change that, or we're not gonna fucking play ball with you.
It's like, dude, you also could have just communicated better, and you would get way less of these misleading headlines if the communication was just like more direct in terms of getting ahead of the narratives in time. Like, bro, they have an entire PR team. What the fuck are their PR team doing? That's a disgrace. Last thing I'll say, because we've got to finish up now, is my final point is, remember, guys, Joe is even less upset about this than I am. So, go hate on him instead of me. Fuck you. Go hate on him. Get out of my mentions.
Look, I got for once, get out of Avril's mentions, okay? Like, we get it. The Shock aren't very good right now. Leave them alone, all right? You come hang out with me.
Why'd you bring the Shock into this conversation? What was that about?
There was when you're talking about how people take like the most, unbridled bad faith arguments, I can only imagine the DMs that you must get where people are just like running proper anti-propaganda.
During the Plaid Chat live episode we did, sure. I want to thank and give a shout out to the some of the people in that chat that had my back and said, AVRL is the voice of reason in this podcast right now, and I tried to be. I really because the thing is, like, dude, what is the point of having a massive circle jerk where we all just doom and gloom and like, oh yeah, it's all circle jerk about how bad this is. Like, everyone knows it's bad. No one disagrees. People think I don't think it's bad. I think it's bad. It's very clearly bad. I'm just saying that there's like, let's try and explain the fact. Let's try and understand. I'm just coming from a place of understanding. Let's understand what the fuck happened here. Instead of just like dooming about how bad it is, anyone can do that. Let's try and bring some nuance to the table and discuss like what actually happened, which is what I'm doing here.
Yep. No, I think it would behoove content creators to be circle jerky and doom and gloom because historically,
again, I'm not
as well.
And I have to PR myself again because people are going to think I'm attacking or shit talking my colleagues here. Absolutely not. Again, I love them all. I respect them all. And I even after that episode, I talked to everyone and just like, hey, yo, you know. And we're all chill. We're like, dude, it's all people think because Reinforce and I had a back and forth on Twitter that we hate each other. It's like, dude, you guys are fucking crazy. We're just like,
imagine two adults having
two adults having a genuine conversation, bringing up stats and like having a healthy debate. Let's call it.
Yeah,
we're friends.
With a little banter. We shucks.
We literally had DMs in the background being like, yo, like. He's like, oh, I'm gonna fire some shots at this one. I'm like, all right, all good. And it's like, oh, don't. I hope you don't mind if I fire some shots back there. We're like laughing behind the scenes about it. You know, it seems there's no hostility there. We're like fucking actually joking behind the scenes in the DMs while the tweets are firing off in the public. Anyway, I'm done. That's all I had to say.
No, I thought that was fairly interesting, and I think I don't know. We need more of that stuff. We need more people just
True. Don't give the game away, though, Avril. I know now it's buried. Like, after 2 hours, there's like 5 people still here, but don't give the game away.
Well, they're the real ones. They're the real ones, you know?
They are. If you can listen through this much, then, you know.
Because all the people that like, are going to accuse me of coping or defending or shilling, all that kind of shit, they're already gone. I know they've already left. So if you're still here, you're a real one.
They're 20, 30-minute Andes, you know. We know when you leave.
No stamina.
No stamina. No. 2 pump chumps. That's what we call you. I know that we don't have a ton of time left, but I think we did give PvE a good send-off and a welcome to whatever comes next. I know Yiska does need to catch a flight sometime in the morning, so I did want to kind of postulate, because we do have the APAC expert here, so I did want to get some takes coming into the...
Yiska's like, oh, fuck.
I'm just like doing the calculation if we can even get the upload, because I don't want to have my PC on while I'm in fucking London, you know? Like, that's a... Okay, let's speedrun this.
We're not going through the entire bracket.
Okay.
We can't do the bracket. There's too many hurdles.
Give me round 1.
Give me your 2 representatives. Who are the 2 representatives based on these brackets that are the most likely to get out of APAC?
Infernal Charge. Infernal have the way easier, even though we're not looking at it, Infernal have the way easier bracket because they have Dallas and Shanghai as contenders on that team, and plus OW2 Blast could put up a fight, but I'm pretty sure Infernal are the best team there. Group A, probably the Charge, because they've shown the most consistent results, and even when they lost to Infernal, they still lost 2-3, and it was a close enough game that it could have gone either way. Hangzhou are a very explosive team that could have a lot of highs, but I would place my money on Charge for now because they're more consistent than Spark. Spark probably have high highs, but Charge more consistent. I value that more currently. I don't think Seoul are going to do too much here, and I don't think any other contenders teams are going to do too much here either. Pokerface could do some damage. I don't think they beat Charge. I think Charge are way too far ahead of the pack.
Agreed. Yiska, any takes there? Any deviations? Because I do have a follow-up that should be equally as quick.
I think Spark has a chance, for sure.
Sure.
But... yeah, I feel like Infernal is a lock-in. I think, honestly, like from the lower bracket, the team that I'm most concerned about for shutting that down from Infernal is probably OW2, interestingly, from Scrimbucks. So, yeah, I think like Panthera also not bad. And then the rest is... I'm just wondering how deep Dallas can make it, I think.
Dude, I think OW2 could beat both Shanghai and Dallas.
Damn it.
Yeah. Bro, they might.
Yeah.
OW2,
you beat me to it.
OW2 legitimately might beat both those teams.
I have them beating. I have OW2 beating Dallas in my bracket. I have them making the grand finals and ultimately losing to the Infernal.
Yeah, but I don't think they're as good as the Infernal is the position.
Agreed. that's kind of the ultimate is like, okay, there are two clear like front runners in APAC. It feels like it's the Charge, it's the Infernal. Everybody else is basically kind of playing for second, and it weirdly enough, yeah, O2 might be playing for second. Which is kind of crazy to say.
The problem is, fucking Infernal is so anti-clutch. You like, I just don't. I don't want. I want 0 close games here, right? Like,
that's why they got. That's why they have the easier side. That's why I can confidently say it, because if they had the other bracket, because of how anti-clutch they are, I'm like,
could be rough.
I don't know if Infernal will make it out, but here, because they have the easy bracket, I'm like, they'll probably make it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Soul saved them from themselves with that map 5. In the end.
Which Soul?
Dynasty,
yeah.
Oh,
otherwise they would be in the top bracket, right? Like if they won that last map. Like if
if
you mean Infernal,
if Zest hits that pulse bomb any more accurately and like their backline dies right then and there, like I think
that's 900 IQ. Dude, Zest and the Infernal knew that the bracket was going to be extremely poorly seeded, and based on their knowledge of the bad seedings, they knew that they had to come second.
Yeah.
How badly is this seeded, by the way? Like, why is this 1-3-5 and 2-4-6?
This is crazy.
Being first
T1
place,
collusion.
Being first place in APAC actually gives you the harder bracket here. That's so bad. Oh my god.
Yeah, I agree.
That being said, we are not going to be able to dive into every team, but there are some really exciting contenders teams. I think Poker Face, I think AVRL said, definitely a team to keep your eyes on. I think Rhodes is going to be fun watch. Yeah, check it out. Alien's crazy. O2 will be good as long as Marvel doesn't poop his pants on stage.
There's a lot of XL players from the contender teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
like Dreamers, Poker Face, Rhodes, all XL players in there.
Yep.
O2 has XL players. I think Panthera
still
has
some
some as
pretty
well.
exciting rookies though. I think there's some big names that people are. Well, yes, it is a mix, but there are some familiar names, some new names that you're going to be excited to watch. So
this is way better than like a raw contenders experience where it's like all people you don't know. I think for people that are somewhat familiar with the Overwatch League history of players, you see these contenders teams, you're like, oh, I recognize these guys. You're like you will
I know
recognize
Fate.
some players.
Yeah.
You know, you'll recognize the players.
Yep. Definitely tune in. It's going to be a fun one. And there's a built-in narrative. Can the 2022 defending champions lose to a contenders team? Find out this weekend. It's coming up. You've got the Preds, sort of. You've got PvE, sort of. We'll see you next week fully with another episode. So Yiska has to catch a flight. We need to upload this. We don't want to take up too much Arvel's time because I'm sure it's fucking balls o'clock for you. Thank you for coming on and chatting with us. We're going to have to bring you back, I think, for a mid-season. I think I want to cook up something. Hopefully, we can align and get something rolling again. So, any final thoughts? Anything you want to plug?
How long further can we hold Yiska here is my final thought. What if I just did a countdown right now? Just start counting numbers and just...
Yeah,
the race to count to 100.
I've already decided I'm going to sleep on the plane.
Good on ya.
I felt it was cool to come back for a big episode like this and talk further. Because I felt like there was more to be said on this PvE subject. And I felt like I needed to expand on my position further. Even though I think again, most people probably haven't made it this far, but if you have, thank you. So I appreciate you all.
Oh,
I
think it's well said.
I think it's also there's a time and a place for everything. I think, generally speaking, I think there was a lot of truth to what Johnny said in the tweet that he made. But my God, was it not reading the room at the time that it was posted? Like,
we still could get talents.
If you post this tomorrow, I think it goes over way better than right. Like, yeah. Oh well,
it is funny. It's a good laugh, but he's not wrong.
Me when I get tone policed. Unlucky.
Unlucky, yeah.
Whoops, forgot to read the room. Got tone policed again. Unlucky.
Welcome to the internet in 2023.
Yep. All right, boys. Next week, coming in hot. We'll see you.
Peace.